Yes, case number 33 on the calendar in the matter of Young versus LaChance.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. Be seated.
I usually don't like to prejudge things, Mr. LaChance, but I think that you're not a very honorable person. According to the complaint that I read, sir, you and the plaintiff were involved in a relationship. You thought it was going to be a solid one. You signed a lease on an apartment, correct?
Correct.
And after 3 weeks, the thing didn't work out.
Correct.
And you agreed that she would leave, and you would stay in the apartment.
I was staying in the apartment, yes.
And when you were staying in the apartment, according to the plaintiff, you were staying with someone whose name was?
Jacob Canuck.
You were staying with someone whose name was Jacob. And when she left, according to her, Jacob was paying her half of the rent so that you weren't out any additional money. Then, according to the plaintiff, you told her you were moving out of the apartment. So far correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And she didn't want to ruin her credit, so she picked up the rent and paid the rent, right?
Yes, ma'am.
When she goes to the apartment to get something, she sees all your stuff there because you had moved back in. But you let her pay the rest of the rent, believing that he was out of the apartment.
Yes, ma'am.
Your excuse is that you were forced to pay the rent yourself for 7 months because of her, and therefore you decided that she should pay the rest of the rent.
Her name's on that lease. She's just as liable as I am.
Mr. LaChance, in what month did you sign the lease?
We signed that in May of 2006.
And she left in May of 2006.
She left June 2nd, 2006.
6/2. Did she pay May's rent?
Actually, I paid it.
You mean you paid it alone?
I paid it alone, yes.
Why is that?
I had recently come into some money at about the end of April playing online poker. It's what we used to move out here. It covered all our moving trucks.
So you paid the May rent?
Correct.
Okay. Now, when did Jacob move in?
Jacob was with us from the beginning.
And how much was the rent in the apartment?
$569 a month.
And how much was Jacob paying?
He was not paying for any of the rent.
And how long did you let him stay?
He stayed until November.
So you're telling me you did not try to find another roommate between June and November because you were letting Jacob stay there rent-free?
Correct.
Now I'm going to respond to your statement.
Okay.
The reason you had to pay the rent is because your behind was sleeping in the apartment. Hers was not. And you had a roommate who should have been paying half the rent.
From July till November, he was never home. It was predominantly a storage space for his stuff. I helped him out every now and then.
Then
He
it's
was
your
never,
responsibility, sir, to find another roommate.
I was unable to find another roommate.
Show me what efforts you made to find another roommate.
I had friends at work.
Now
tried
let's
to
go
make
a little
some
further, Mr. LaChance.
I don't
When
have
did you?
anybody
I'm
in
speaking
town.
to you. When did you call Miss Young and tell her that you were moving out of the apartment?
I was finally able to get a hold of her. It would have been end of November.
And you told her you were moving out in December?
Yes, ma'am.
And had you paid November's rent?
At that point,
Oh, it's not an answer, sir. Did you pay November's rent?
November was paid, yes.
Right. And you moved out in December?
Yes, ma'am.
And you paid December's rent?
Yes, ma'am. It was actually a lot more.
Shh.
Okay.
So you called her and let her know that you were moving out in December, and if she wanted to keep her credit, she better start paying the rent.
Yes, ma'am.
When did you move back to the apartment, Mr. LaChance?
I moved back in January of 2007.
So you were out of the apartment for 1 month.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you call and tell her you moved back?
I was unable to get a hold of her.
Did you call and
I
tell
called.
her you moved back into the apartment?
I called, yes.
So that I assume you paid January's rent.
I did not pay January's rent.
I assume you paid February's rent.
I did not pay February.
That's why I told you when we started this case that I thought your behavior was abominable because it was dishonest, totally dishonest. Moving out is one thing. Saying, listen, I'm moving out of the apartment. Your name's on the lease, my name's on the lease. I lived here for the last few months, so I paid the rent. But now I'm moving out, just like you moved out. So I think if we want to both keep our credits intact, maybe you don't need it, because if you make a living doing online poker, maybe you don't need your credit intact. She does. So maybe we should just join forces, pay this lease out, and whatever. But that's not what you did. You were able to contact her when you wanted to move out. But when you moved back and knew that she was going to be paying the rent and you were going to be living there rent-free, then you couldn't contact her. That's not very nice, sir. Now, when did you find out he was still living there?
I had the locks changed March 26th, and
was
he
locked up.
called
So
me.
you paid December, January, February, and March.
Yes, ma'am. I also paid April.
And April. When did you go and check the apartment?
Well, I moved back to Florida, and the apartment's in Texas. so I couldn't just go there. So I was talking through the apartment complex, and I said, I want to have the locks changed because I believe someone's still living there.
What made you think someone was still living there?
Because once he stopped paying the electric bill, it went back into the apartment's name, so they were getting the bill, and she was sending it to me. So if there's electric, someone's living there. So I said, I would like to have the locks changed. I paid the $25, and I got a call from Raymond that night saying,
I'm an authorized tenant in that place. There was no reason to have me
Mr.
locked out.
LaChance, don't you understand? You did something that was amoral, dishonest, dishonest. Don't you get it?
To me, dishonest was leaving 3 weeks into the lease.
No, Mr.
She committed
LaChance,
herself
that's
for a year.
ridiculous, sir. You weren't getting along. I don't even care why you weren't getting along. You were dishonest. You said, I'm moving out, and then you moved back without telling her. And the only time you contacted her again, and you were able to contact her again, you said, I couldn't call and tell her I was moving back because I couldn't contact her. So you were able to call her when you were moving out, and you were able to call her after she changed the locks. But you couldn't call her that critical time to tell her you were moving back into the apartment. She didn't have to pay the rent anymore.
I had left voicemails. I had sent
Listen to
messages.
me. Dishonest. What kind of work do you do?
I am a waiter at a restaurant.
What else do you do?
I play online poker.
Dishonest. So you owe her for rent for 5 months. You also owe for the electricity while you were there. How much?
it was $2,100.
Now, it's my understanding from your complaint that you have a witness who is able to testify that for the first few months after you left, the rent was paid.
Yes, ma'am.
Call the witness.
I would like Jacob Knudsen to come out.
You swear to tell the truth in these matters.
Yes, sir.
State your name for the record, please.
Jacob Knudsen.
Okay. Do you live in the apartment with Mr. LaChance from June until December?
I left early November, but yes, June is correct.
When you were there in June, July, August, September, and October, those 5 months, did you contribute to the rent?
Most of the time. The only month that I was not able to contribute to my full share of the rent was the beginning of October, due to the fact that I lost my job.
I don't care why you didn't contribute in the month of October. You didn't contribute in the month of October. You paid rent in June?
Yes,
How much?
$285, my half.
And you gave that to him in check or cash?
Cash.
That was June. What about July?
Yes.
You paid him in July?
Yes.
August?
Yes.
The full amount, to either
$285, yes.
What about September?
September, yes.
But not October?
No.
And what happened in November?
November, I was still out of work, and I contacted my mother and borrowed $400 from her in order to pay my half at the beginning of November. I have a Western Union voucher right here.
Can I see it, please?
Yes. The Western Union voucher that states that I got $400 from my mother in order to pay my half of the bills.
So if Mr. LaChance said that you were there and you stayed there sporadically
I was not home very much, yes.
and that you did not pay any rent to him at all, would that be the truth or a lie, sir?
A lie.
And you were his friend?
Yes.
Who do you know longer?
I know them both about the same amount of time.
But you stayed with him
Yes.
when she left?
Yes, in order to help him with the bills.
Perfect. Good. Anything else you want to say to me? Anybody? Perfect. You owe her $2,100, Mr. LaChance, because you're a dishonest person. Because you're a dishonest person, I'm dismissing your counterclaim for half of the expenses for the time that it is clear that you had help with the rent, because that's what your counterclaim is mainly about. You will always come into contact with people, Mr. LaChance, in this life that are smarter than you are. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You must step out.
I was very depressed. I didn't like the way he was leaving me every night.
She was away from her family. She didn't have a job. I did my best to comfort her.
Instead of comforting me like he said he did, he never did. He just left and went out drinking and with other girls.
I had made some other friends. I was trying to introduce her to a new life. She wouldn't have it.
We went to the bar one night and he invited the girl that he had been seeing and said he would pay for her drinks.
All I wanted to do was show up here and tell the truth. I didn't want to take sides in this situation because they're both my friends.
I paid for my 7 months. It's her turn.
The fact of the matter is one's lying and one's not, and I guess today we found out who was.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Riskin versus Robinson. Step forward.
26-year-old Noah Riskin is suing his ex-girlfriend, 22-year-old Lindsay Robinson, for her share of a backpacking trip through Europe. Lindsay claims the trip was a gift.
Mr. Riskin, Miss Robinson used to be your girlfriend.
Correct.
And it is your claim that you took a backpacking trip to Europe
Yes,
and you advanced some money for Miss Robinson, who was supposed to pay you back.
correct.
Miss Robinson says the trip was a treat, your treat, and there was never any discussion about paying you back for the trip. And she is counterclaiming, she alleges you have some property of hers, a baby book, and she wants some punitive damages because she says you are stalking her. How long were you a couple?
For 7 months.
From when to when?
From mid-June, I believe it was, up until Valentine's Day.
And when was the trip?
We left on January 20th, returned February 19th.
So you were really a couple from June until January, because when I understand from reading your papers that when you took this trip, you each went your own way for a good part of the trip. You traveled independently. It wasn't a romantic getaway for the two of you, right?
Correct.
You didn't live together, did you?
We did.
You were living together.
Yes.
You had enough of each other from June to January. You wanted to be a little separated?
My intention of going to England and Scotland was to backpack, to go as many places as I could. Lindsay told me that she wanted to get a feel for life out there and stay in York
Fine,
for
good,
a week or two.
wonderful, terrific. How come you advanced the money?
Lindsay came up to me after the tickets were purchased, said that she had talked to some friends of her back home, and they told her that she needed roughly $1,000 American dollars per week, conversion rate being about 51 cents per pound. I'm sorry, $1 per 51 pence.
Oh, please, let's move on.
She did not have that money. I offered a loan.
I asked you what was said. Don't say I said to her, I will give you a loan. I want to hear what was said by her and what was said by you. Do you understand? And if it doesn't sound right, it's usually not true, Mr. Riskin. You get it?
I did.
Good.
So I went ahead and loaned her the $2,500.
Okay, Miss Robinson, since he can't get it together, I want you to tell me how it came about that you, A, took money from him for the tickets, and B, took money from him for spending. I think it was $2,500.
Yes.
Tell me how it came about.
He told me he was going. I told him I couldn't go with him. He asked me to go. I said I
I
don't.
want you to keep your voice up and speak slowly so that I can hear you.
Okay. He said he was going to Europe on a backpacking trip. I said, I can't go with you. I was going to use the month to move out anyway. He said, go with me, go with me.
You were
I'm
going to use the what? I don't hear you. Okay, Miss Robinson, I want you to tell me how it came about that you took money from him for the tickets and took money from him for spending.
The month that he was going, I said I'm going to move out and see where it goes from there. So
Look at me.
I told him to let me know when he bought the tickets and I would make a decision because he kept asking and asking. So when I called him, he said he bought 2 tickets. I'd said no and he bought the ticket anyway. As far as money goes, I told him, well, I still don't have the money to go, and he offered to give me money for that too. We went to the bank together. He deposited it into my account.
What's wrong with you?
I listened to him, I guess.
No, you didn't listen to him, I guess. If you were not happy with him and if you were moving out, why did you take all that money from him?
Because
Why?
Because I thought he was doing a nice thing. He told me it was going to be a gift, and I believed him. And he told me he didn't want the
That's
money
not
back.
my question to you. I'm talking about being a moral person. Let's say I believe you, which I'm not sure I do. Let's say I believe you. Why would you, since you knew that he was anxious for you to go, since you knew that he was anxious for you, perhaps not to break up this relationship that you had had for 7 months, why would you, knowing what you knew, take money from him? Because as soon as you came back, you broke up, right? Right?
Before we got back, we broke up.
Well, before, but you already got yourself there on his ticket, and you already had $2,500 of his money.
Yeah.
Well, that's wrong.
I know. I know. I thought it was something that it wasn't, and I should have listened to my gut. I thought we had an understanding, and we didn't.
What kind of understanding?
We discussed it before, and we had the understanding that it wasn't going to be romantic, that we were both going to go our separate ways, and that it was a gift. Because I told him I couldn't go over and over, and he insisted that he wanted to do something nice for me. He called my dad and told him about it. He told my best friends about it. Knowing that we would break up, he told them that. And so I thought we had an understanding.
I want to tell you something. If it doesn't make sense, it's usually not true. What nice thing had you done for him?
I don't know. I was with him. I mean...
Well, he was with you. You mean
exactly.
that's a gift that you were with him?
We just had...
What kind of spectacular thing do you have that other people don't have?
Nothing.
Huh?
Nothing.
Nothing. I didn't think so. I mean, what do you bring to the table that millions of other people don't bring? Why in the world would you think that he would invest a whole bunch of money in taking you away if he didn't think that by doing that, perhaps you could rekindle your relationship.
That's what he did think. I know it is.
Then you did the wrong thing by taking it, knowing that it wasn't going to work.
I didn't. Okay.
How much was the ticket?
The ticket was $531.
And how much cash did you give her?
$2,500.
Okay. Forget the incidentals. You're lucky we're going where we're going. Do you understand? I'm going to hear your counterclaim. And I must tell you, Miss Robinson, I have other things to do today. You want your baby book back?
I want my, yes.
Why did you take her baby book?
The baby book was actually left. When she had moved out, she left everything that she did not want. A number of magazines, old shoes, etc. that she did not want. She just left them for me to clean up. I found them, and I did notify her that I had these items. She has not made any effort to pick them up for me, to send anyone to pick them up. I still have them.
What are they?
A baby book and a childhood photo album that I saved from the trash pile.
Why did you leave them?
That's not true. First of all, I got home and all my stuff was on the porch the same night we got back. He locked me out so that I couldn't get in and took my key. Everything that was on the porch, I took. Everything that wasn't mine, like the magazines, I left there, yeah, because he threw it all on the porch. So
On what date?
that would be the 19th, the night of the 19th, the night we got back.
What else?
He basically, after the breakup, I don't know what happened, but he became very different. He would show up at my work at least twice a week. And
Yes? And what?
And just hover around. He would pull friends out of work and tell them about everything that happened between us. And
Well, get over it. You owe him $3,031. Your counterclaim is dismissed. That's all.
thank you.
Parties are excused. You may rise. Now, this is case number 40 on the calendar in the matter of Hazeltine, Ireland versus Nice. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Who is Miss Ireland?
I'm Miss Ireland.
Hazelton?
Hazeltine is my mother.
Miss Hazeltine, according to your complaint, you, not your daughter, but you, rented a room from the defendant.
Yes, ma'am.
And you found that room on something on the internet called Craigslist
Yes, ma'am.
and signed a month-to-month lease.
I did.
When did you sign that?
March 1st, 2007.
Where had you been living before that?
I was residing in an apartment which I shared with my daughter, and she decided to move out on her own and get her own apartment. So I thought it would be good for me to move into a place where I could save a little money, maybe meet some new people, until I was able to purchase my own home.
How long had you been renting rooms?
I've been renting rooms for about 4 years.
What kind of property do you have?
I have a home in Elk Grove, California,
How many bedrooms?
5 bedrooms.
How many tenants do you have?
Currently 1,
How many tenants did you have when you had Miss Hazeltine?
just myself and Cindy.
And it was a month-to-month tenancy.
It was.
It is your claim that Miss Nice terminated your tenancy without proper notice, and you want moving expenses, your security deposit back, and you want damages because she, you claim, assaulted both you and your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Nice says that you are not entitled to your security deposit back because you promised that you were going to stay through April, and you didn't. It is her claim that you actually assaulted her. So let's find out when the trouble began. You moved in March 1st.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
About approximately a week after I moved in, I noticed some strange behavior from Miss Nice. When I was in the home alone, and especially when I had company over, I would notice some outbursts. Seems she was talking to herself, kind of laughing out loud. She'd walk through the home when I'd have company over and bang anything that would make noise, opening and closing compulsively the garage door. The washer was close to my room, so she'd slam the washer door up and down.
Got it. Let's move on.
Okay. And I became just really uncomfortable in the home. I'd find myself, I'd sign up for overtime, I'd go to the gym, anything to avoid coming home because her behavior was really disturbing, uncomfortable. And so I noticed that it became more obvious when I had company over, so I decided to talk to her about it. So maybe I was doing something wrong. And so I came home, and so I knocked on her door. She didn't answer, so that's when I called her cell phone, and I found that she was actually at home in her room. And she came out, and I had a conversation with her, and I said, is there something bothering you, lately? Because I've noticed that you've been slamming things around, banging things. And her response was, bang? I don't bang. Bang? I don't bang anything. I said, oh, okay. Well, apparently, when my boyfriend's over, does he make you uncomfortable? No, I don't have a problem with your boyfriend. And I said, well, one night he spent the night here, and it seemed that you were really uncomfortable with that, and that's when I noticed the most noise. She goes, well, I didn't even know he spent the night. And she goes, well, it's in your lease agreement that you can't have any overnight guests. I said, well, I didn't notice that in my lease agreement. I apologize.
Was it in your lease agreement?
It was, ma'am, in my lease agreement.
Okay.
And I said, I respect that. And I said, well, that's something that I'm not sure if I can live with. I apologize. I overlooked that. And I said, if you feel real strong about that, then I think I might have to make a decision to move out. And I would go ahead and give you a proper 30-day notice. And she goes, okay, well, that's fine.
Fine. What day was that? That was in
Okay,
March?
that was, yes, the 19th of March. I sent her a copy, certified mail, which she...
May I see it, please?
Absolutely. That was sent regular mail as well as certified mail, which I have a receipt there. Ms. Neese
Okay.
never picked up the certified copy.
Okay, and you received this letter terminating
Yes.
her tenancy?
Yes, I have
Fine.
it right here.
Good. So what happened?
Okay,
What was
so
next?
things were a little still uncomfortable in the house, so I decided to avoid her as much as possible. About a week after giving that notice to her, I came home and found that she was interviewing another tenant, which I gave her the privacy. I had went and cleaned up and got ready to go back out again.
I haven't
She
even
then,
met you.
she then,
You have a turn. Right now, plaintiff is talking.
Okay.
Go ahead.
after I had finished and cleaned up and the person had left, she had come and spoke with me and said, okay, well, when are you going to be moving your furniture out? I understand, I received your 30-day notice. And I go, well, I can start putting it in storage soon if you really need the space, because she was saying that she wanted to offer that space to the tenant. She goes, well, that's your right to keep it there for the remainder of the month. And, things seemed to be okay then, but she's still exhibiting some behaviors that I just didn't feel that.
I understand. You were moving out for a reason. Keep going.
Absolutely. And so I had received a phone call on March 31st. I was at the gym, and I received a message from Miss Neese. And on the message, she says that she's demanding that she have a face-to-face meeting with me and discuss the 30-day notice agreement and finalize me moving out. And so I was kind of, I didn't understand.
Just tell me what happened. Don't
okay, so
tell
I
me what
called
you
her
were
up,
thinking.
and I said, I got your message. What's the deal with me having to come over? And she goes, well, I want you to speak to me face-to-face. I gave you the same respect when you gave me your 30-day notice. And I said, well, I really don't want to have any confrontation with you. You're making me feel really uncomfortable and threatened. She goes, well, if you do not come home right now, I'm going to lock you out. And I said, you can't lock me out. And she goes, I'm telling you, if you don't come home right now, I'm going to lock you out. At that point, she disconnected the phone call. Me and my boyfriend were at the gym. I said, come on with me. She's threatening to lock me out. I need to go home. When we got there, me and my boyfriend entered the home, and Miss Neese was in the kitchen. She had already taken all my groceries out of the fridge and out of the cupboard and had set them up on the counter as if she was moving me out. I said, what are you doing? Please put my things back. You can't move me out. What's the problem? And at that point, she came around the counter of the kitchen with her finger in my face, and she goes, girl, you better shut your mouth, because in the name of Jesus, I'm going to smack the devil out of you. At that point, my boyfriend placed his body in between us because she was this close in my face, and he's that face to me, and he's like trying to block her. And she turned around, and she swung about backside of him and hit me upside the head. At that point, I grabbed my cell phone. She grabbed her cell phone. I called the police. She called 911. The police arrived, a female police officer. Police officer went and spoke to Miss Neese. Miss Neese had stated that she was going to be locking me out of the house, and the officer had stated, legally, ma'am, you cannot lock her out of the house. And she goes, don't you tell me how to run my
Can I
household.
see the police report, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She comes up behind me and then kind of hits me. And then Miss Neese turned around to my mom and she goes to make a fist like she was going to strike my mom. And I grabbed her arm and I put it down and I said, don't touch my mom.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Cynthia Aseltine and daughter Danielle Ireland claim Cynthia's former landlord, Sidney Neese, is guilty of an assault. Sidney claims it was the plaintiffs who assaulted her.
Now, when did the incident happen with your daughter?
Same day.
Same day?
It was a little bit later on that day when I had came. The police officers had actually left at a certain point, and my mother had called my boyfriend and I to show up. She had to go and get a U-Haul to get all of her things, and we both ended up showing up at the exact same time as my mom with the U-Haul, and that's when I arrived.
And what happened with Miss Neese?
Well, we came into the house, and she was in her bedroom, had shut the door, was in her bedroom, like the police officer told her to stay in the room. I went into this little front area that was right next to her bedroom door and started to grab furniture. And I grabbed this big glass top that was to one of my mom's coffee tables, and I started going out. And then Miss Neese came out of her room and was really mad and angry and was directing a lot of anger at myself and at Ryan, saying that he didn't have any right to be in the house, and that was saying something about how we couldn't go through the garage door. She was telling us we had to go through the the front door for some reason, and I was standing on my way to the garage door. She was really like livid and saying that we couldn't be in our house, that we had no right to be in there, and then she comes up behind me and grabs me by the back of my neck and like kind of pushes me and then kind of hits me. And then Miss Niece turned around to my mom and starts getting in her face, and she's throwing her hands wildly and stuff, and then she goes to make a fist like she was going to strike my mom, and I grabbed her arm and I put it down and I said, "Don't touch my mom." And then it just turned into a scuffle where she was just being really wild.
Okay, Miss Niece, I would like you first to tell me your version of the events of the 31st of March.
Okay, Saturday, March 31st, I initiated a call to Cindy to finalize things in the matter. She had sent me a letter March 20th indicating that she was going to move out at the end of April. And so I wanted to finalize things as far as obtaining the rent for April.
She already told you that she was going to give you the rent April 3rd in the letter.
Right. In my lease, it indicates, in the initial agreement that we signed, it indicates that if any rent is not paid time or in full, that they will forfeit the security. That's in item number 2 in our lease.
What difference does that make? She already said, "I'll pay you your rent on April 3rd. It's in her letter that she sent to you.
Because I just like to do things decently and in order, so...
This is decently and in order. You called her on her cell phone.
Yeah, I called her on Saturday and I asked, because she had initiated an appointment in mid-March. She wanted to see if her boyfriend could stay overnight, and she knocked on my door. Actually, I was napping, and she knocked on my door until...
Shh, don't interrupt her. I'm just asking you what you told her on March 31st. You called her, she's at the gym.
On March 31st, I asked her if she had any time in the afternoon. I said I'd appreciate if we could finalize things and, you know, get the rent. So then she started cursing at me, and she started getting really violent on the phone and calling me up.
Did you tell her she had to come home or else you were going to change the locks?
No, absolutely not.
Did you take her food out of the refrigerator? I'm speaking.
No, I didn't actually.
Did you take her food out of the refrigerator and place it on the counter?
No, not...
Did you tell the police when they arrived that you were planning on changing the locks and locking her out?
When she started cursing at me on the phone, because she, by the way, she's been pretty violent before, so when she came home from the gym, she came home and she kicked me, which I have a photo of the bruise on my leg from when she kicked me then. At that point, I had called the police because I had wanted to have her arrested. So when they came over, they kind of separated us, got both versions of what had happened. And so I didn't have her arrested at that point.
The police found you very agitated, Ms. Niece. According to all 3 police officers who arrived at the scene...
Well, she assaulted me. I have pictures. She admitted biting me on the arm.
There was an altercation. There's no question there was an altercation.
Well, I actually didn't touch her or her daughter. Both of them came home. She called her daughter, and they both came in, and then they assaulted me in my room. And that's why I had called the police a second time. When I was on the phone with the police, I was terrified. They said, "Where are you?" I said, "I locked myself in my room," because I was afraid they were going to come in again. I have pictures of the door and from when they tried to barge in my door, and I have pictures of all the bruises. They hit me.
What do you do for a living, Miss Niece?
I'm an insurance broker.
For a company?
For myself. I have my own agency, and I'm going to school for court reporting.
So you operate out of your home or out of an office?
I'm usually on the road, but my office is out of my home, yes.
So you don't have an office other than at your home?
Correct.
And how long have you been doing that?
5 years.
Make a living at that?
Yes.
The last time you had a tenant prior to the plaintiff, what was that tenant's name?
Prior to Cynthia? She was the first tenant in that home.
So you'd never had a tenant?
Not in this home. When I was in the Bay Area, I've had tenants. She was the first tenant in this home.
Judge, I have some information regarding the tenants in the Bay Area. San Mateo County Courts, there's 3 claims regarding Ms. Niece in regards to tenant-landlord. 2 times she was a defendant, and 1 she was a plaintiff regarding the same situation, withholding deposits
Can I see
and so
that?
forth. Actually, I didn't print it out, but if you go to San Mateo County Courts, it is public record.
You had 3 landlord and tenant actions while you were there? One is a plaintiff and one is a defendant?
I'm not sure what she's referring to, but it was just probably a lack of, my income. But with regard to
No,
this...
I'm not talking about... I'm asking you whether you had 3 previous landlord and tenant actions.
I think there was 1, and it was just because I was having problems, with cash flow, but they have since been paid back.
When was that she put a stop pay on a deposit as a tenant herself?
That sound familiar?
I'm not sure what she's referring to, but I would appreciate if we could talk about this case today and why, I don't believe that I owe her this security deposit.
You absolutely owe her the security deposit. There's no question that you owe her the security deposit. You
Okay.
told her to leave. I've read the police report. You said you wanted her out that day. She left. She did not stay the month of April, despite the fact that she said she was planning on paying April's rent. You absolutely owe her the security deposit. There's no question about that.
Well, because she assaulted me, and I had to put out expense. She didn't return the key when she moved out.
I believe that this was an unfortunate circumstance, that everybody's tempers got very flared up.
Actually,
on that.
mine did not.
Well, not according
And
to
I
the
was
Miss
blatantly
Neese. According to the
I
police,
was
the only
blatantly assaulted by her and her
Miss
daughter,
Neese,
and her boyfriend had
I'm
to
telling
pull them
you,
off of me.
and the police department.
And when
I'm
she moved
speaking. When I'm
out-
speaking, don't speak.
Okay.
Clearly, not only did you claim that they were assaultive, you
I have
also. I'm
photographs of all
speaking.
the
I'm
assaults.
speaking. Do you hear me speaking? You also claim conspiratorial behavior on the part of the police. You weren't satisfied with the police officer who came. You demanded their supervisor. 2 supervisors arrived. They couldn't calm you down. You demanded their supervisor. So everybody is in a conspiracy against you. There's something not right, Miss Neese. All of that is clearly contained in the police report. I assume you have a copy of it.
The copy that I obtained from them does not contain that information. That's not what they had given me. They
May
gave
not
me
be what
one
they
line.
gave you, but that's what I have.
Okay, can I show you the pictures of my bruise?
Absolutely.
And actually, I still have them on my body.
Absolutely. Show me.
This is a picture of when she bit me in the arm.
She absolutely acknowledges that she
And
bit you in
then,
the arm, and she
a
says she bit
bruise
you.
on my
I'm
breast.
speaking. Don't you want to hear me speaking? She absolutely acknowledges that she bit you in the arm so that you would let her go.
Absolutely, ma'am.
Okay, can I tell my version of the story, ma'am?
When I contact the police department.
Okay. What had transpired, basically, the whole issue, when she first, in the initial ad, I indicated no alcohol, no overnight guests, and she breached both of those. She was drinking a lot while she was there, and she was having overnight guests, her boyfriend. And I never even said anything because I didn't want to get into any confrontation. But then she mentioned, she talked to me that one day, and I said, no overnight guests. Are you okay with that?
So she gave you
said
notice.
yes.
Listen, I got it. I have other things to do today. She said, I'm moving. She sent you an appropriate notice that she's moving. Move on with it. Get to the 31st.
Right, but then she didn't pay the rent, and so I wanted
No. She has no obligation to pay the rent on March 31st. None. And if you demanded that she come home from the gym...
I didn't demand that she came home. I called her on the cell phone, and I said, do you have any time this afternoon? What's your availability?
I don't think you should have roommates. I don't think you should rent rooms to anybody. I don't. I think that you are a very, very nice lady who clearly should live alone, not with anybody else, because you can't make rules for adults. I mean, she's an adult lady. She's not a teenager. You didn't rent to a teenager. And if you don't like other people living in your house because other people aren't going to do things the way you do...
Well, it's not that I want to do things the way I want to do.
Don't
But when I
rent
rented
a room.
They said no overnight guests. When
Absolutely
I rented, they
right.
set their
And she
guidelines,
said, I
and I
didn't-
honored them.
So
if she didn't want to...
Do you take medication? Do you take medication?
No, ma'am.
You should. Because I've already told you 4 times, this is the 4th time, that when I start to speak, you have to stop.
Okay.
You can't. That's something that's not working right. You owe her security deposit, which was how much?
It was $500.
Did either of you seek any medical treatment for your injuries?
No,
Yes, I did.
I'm not talking about you. Now, where did you move when you moved?
I was actually homeless for 8 days. I was allowed to stay at my boyfriend as roommate with another roommate, and he
That's
was
fine.
out of town.
That's fine. Don't make up things as we go along. You weren't homeless because you were able to sleep someplace.
Well, yes. I mean, I was without a permanent...
Fine, and then you found someplace.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Whole thing is very, very unfortunate. Really, very unfortunate. You want to say anything to me? No. You want your security deposit back?
It's case number 336 on the calendar in the matter of Keenis versus Jaworski.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Judge Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Miss Keenis, this is your daughter.
Yes, it is.
Does she have any siblings?
Yes, she does.
How many?
2, a brother and a sister. She's the oldest.
Is she a cute baby?
Gorgeous.
Is she a nice baby?
Yeah, very well-mannered.
Must have been, because you had 2 more.
Yeah.
Well, you're not getting along so much anymore, and it is your claim that your daughter owes you the balance of 2 loans. One loan that you made to her several years ago in order to permit her to open up a business. That loan was for $10,000, and she's paid back a substantial part of that loan.
That's correct.
over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. You were opening a beauty salon, and you were able to do that through the loan from your mom.
Exactly.
The second loan was for $2,000, and that was more recently, and that was to permit her to get an attorney because she was going through a divorce.
Correct.
With regard to that $2,000, your daughter says there was never any discussion of a loan, that you were ecstatic that she was divorcing the husband, and you agreed to help her secure an attorney so that she could
That's not true, Your Honor.
so that she could successfully conclude the divorce process. So let's deal with the first loan. When was that, Ms. Jaworski?
It would have been in August because I bought the business. I took possession
August
of
of what year?
03.
And it was for $10,000?
Yes.
Was there supposed to be interest paid on the loan?
No.
Well, tell me how you were going to make this loan with no interest.
I knew that she had money left over from my grandmother's estate.
Put your hand down. What do you mean left over?
Well, my grandmother didn't take care of things how you're supposed to, and so all of the money that was left out of her estate went to the state for her care. But there was somehow this money left over that the state didn't know
much
about.
money?
I knew of $10,000.
Okay, go ahead.
And so I asked my mom if I could borrow that $10,000 from her because I knew it was in the bank sitting there, and so that there wouldn't be interest or anything on it because we already had the money.
Well, there would be interest on it. If she loans you $10,000, then she's losing the interest on $10,000 for as long as it takes you to pay her back.
There was never any discussion of it.
But you do understand that.
I understand what you're saying, but in my mind, it wasn't that way.
I don't care what
It
was
just
in your
sitting
mind.
there.
What I'm telling you is, if your mother takes the money out of the bank, then she's losing interest on it, so there is a loss. I also don't understand why she should make this loan to you without interest when you have a brother and a sister. Why would she just let you have it all yourself?
Because it was just going to be a loan. It was going to be paid back.
In what period of time?
There was no set period of time because when you open a business, you never know. Most businesses fail in the first 5 years. And
Well,
so,
what happens if your business failed? You mean you weren't going to pay her back the money?
Well, no, I never intended not to pay her back the money.
But you just said most businesses fail within the first few years. What happens if your business failed?
Well, if my business failed, I would still have to pay her, but that was just to help me out. It was my mom helping me out. It was family helping family out.
But she didn't take that money out of the bank.
At the last minute, she had decided that she was going to pull it off of a credit card because she was nervous about the state finding out that she still had that money.
You mean she didn't think that they would find out about it if she kept it in the bank? Go ahead. Keep
no.
going. Keep going. I'm listening to the story. So she wanted to take it off of her credit card rather than take it out of the bank because she was afraid that the state would find out.
Well, she was worried that
Go
they
ahead.
would find out and then she wouldn't have the money sitting there.
Keep going.
No, that's really what happened.
Keep going.
And so at the last minute, she decided to pull it off of her credit card because it was 0 interest. And either way, it wouldn't matter. There was
Zero
no
interest for how long? Forever?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? You're in business. You don't have 0 interest forever, maybe for a year or two, but not forever.
I never saw any of the credit card information. I have no idea, to tell you the truth.
Well, let's understand this. You knew at the time that you accepted this loan that it was coming off of a credit card. Is that right, Ms. Jaworski?
At the last minute, yes.
I don't care if it's the last minute or the last second. You always could say no.
I know, but I'd already given
Listen to me. You always could say no.
Mm-hmm. And then if I had...
Who cares what happens if you had? If you had, you go to work in somebody else's beauty parlor. Now, there was 0 interest. And as a business person, you know that 0 interest isn't forever. It's for a fixed period of time, which was for how long?
2 years.
That brings us up to 2005. As of August 2005, how much money did you give her?
I haven't split it out. These are just the statements that I have until then.
Well,
I didn't
Lisa,
add that up.
I don't do that. Math wasn't my strong suit.
Me either.
You either? Then you
No.
shouldn't be in business. But if you didn't pay her back in the 2-year period of time when there was 0 interest on the credit card, you owe her whatever the interest is. End of discussion. Now, how much is on the credit card?
On the credit-
Not with the $2,000 for the lawyer. I'm not dealing with that yet.
Well, it was all on one credit card, and the balance due on it when she stopped making the payment was $4,995.
Show me.
Ma'am, before you roll, can I say something else?
Well, this is not the last one. That's after I've made a payment, but
Can I see that bird, please?
I've made like the last 6 or 7 payments on it.
Now, you wanted to say something, Ms. Jaworski?
I do, because the interest situation. She had said when we put it on that credit card that if the interest came due, that she would either take the money out of the estate and put it back on there. So I would never, the agreement was never any interest. It really wasn't.
Listen to me. You knew at the time she was taking out an interest-free loan for 2 years in order to cover this loan that she was making for you. You had 2 years to pay her back. You didn't. Then interest develops, and whether she takes the money out of the bank and loses interest, you still have to pay. Now tell me about the $2,000 for the lawyer.
When we were going through the divorce, or when Chris and
When
I-
was that?
That would have been in 2000, I believe, 5.
Now, by 2005, we were starting to get some interest on this loan.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, well, so then we're going through our divorce, and I didn't have the money to retain a lawyer. At first, we were just going to do it ourselves. And I was telling her that he was going to try to get custody of the children from me, and that I needed to retain a lawyer. And what I don't understand is she hated...
Just don't tell me anything other than what happened. Not what you don't understand, not what you do understand. Not interested in what you understood. Tell me what happened.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She's seeing my ex-husband.
That's not true. I'm seeing my grandchildren.
She's been seeing her grandchildren at your ex-husband's house, which ticked you off.
And later today,
Where's her cat?
That cat ran around outside. She lost that cat the first 2 weeks she was there. She couldn't find it. I don't have no cat.
The cat was still there.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Melissa Kina says her daughter, Jamie Jaworski, owes for 2 unpaid loans. Jamie says her mother is conspiring with her ex-husband to ruin her life.
Now, you were crying to your mother that your ex-husband was going to try to get custody of the children, and you couldn't afford a lawyer. You didn't have any money.
Basically. And
Right.
she said not to worry
And?
about it, that she would take care of it. And she sent me 2 checks.
From where?
From her credit card.
And?
And she wasn't worried about me paying her back. I didn't know how I was going to end up financially after the divorce.
How did you end up financially after the divorce?
I ended up giving him basically everything. I got $20,000 equity out of the house, of which I gave her a check for $4,000.
You did give her a big check.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got $20,000 from the sale of the house, why didn't you pay her back everything that you owed her?
Because I was buying another house, and I was trying to have a little nest egg in case when you're employed by yourself, it's always good to have a little money back up.
Well, but if the only nest egg your mother had was the $10,000 she had of your grandmother's money, why should you have a nest egg and not her?
I don't know. I've really thought about it that way.
But isn't that a nice way to think about it, Ms. Jaworski? I mean, how old are you?
I'm 37.
And how old is your mother?
My mom must be 57.
Yesterday.
57.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody has to sort of struggle to put together a nest egg, isn't it easier for you, who's starting a new business, to put together a nest egg than your mother, who's 57? Especially since you spent the money. So it's real nice of you to want to have a nest egg all by yourself. But if what you're suggesting is that your mother said, well, if you don't pay the note back in the 2 years, that it's interest-free, you'll take the money out of your nest egg.
No, that wasn't the way it is. I think.
Well,
you're
that's what you just
misinterpret-
told me.
But
I'm just following what you told me.
I think you're misinterpreting it.
No, that's what you told me.
No, it's not.
Does that sound what you just told me?
Sounds like what she told you.
That she would take the money out of her nest egg and pay off the credit card and wait for you to finish putting your nest egg together so you would pay her. Duh.
If you have a business and you don't have operating capital and you don't have money to buy and bring things in and out, you can't run a business. And so that's what I used the other part of that money for. Was
That's
my
not what you
my
just
cash
told
flow.
me.
It is. I had it.
No,
in a
that's
little,
not what you just told me.
I had it set aside so if something happened with
You
the business
just-
that I could keep it going.
That's your nest egg.
Well, I had to because if
You
I
owe your
lose,
mother
if I-
$4,000.
If I lose the shop,
You owe your mother $4,000. And I gather that the reason she's here is because you stopped paying her, according to your mother, because you had an estranged relationship for a while. Why, I don't know.
because she's seeing my ex-husband.
Well, that's what you say. That's what you say.
That's not true. I'm seeing my grandchildren.
That's
in her
what you say.
ex-husband's house.
I think that makes it very convenient for you, Ms. Jaworski,
I think-
because she wasn't seeing her grandchildren, and she wrote a letter, according to her,
Correct.
to her grandson when he was at his father's house, and his father called her and said, if you want to see the boys, you can see them, and she's been seeing them at your ex-husband's house, which ticked you off. So you stopped paying the loan. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $4,000.
Thank you
That's
very
all.
much.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
There will not ever be a relationship.
I was done when she stopped making the payments.
It's not about the money. It's about the things that she's done.
It's just the way she is. She's very self-centered.
The fact that she's seeing my ex-husband.
She's whacked in the head. He's got a girlfriend.
I just think it's odd that he would go spend a week with her when they've had no relationship and they hated each other.
This is the 2nd or 3rd time she's gone around and slandered me, and I'm done with it.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Highmark versus Rigsby. Step forward, please.
25-year-old Anna Highmark is suing her ex-boyfriend, Eddie Rigsby Jr., for the return of her belongings. Anna says Eddie threw her out of their apartment and then disposed of her property.
Ms. Highmark, what was your relationship with the defendant when you moved in with him?
We were friends. At that point, there was no other involvement.
According to what I'm reading between the lines, you moved in with him and relocated from one jurisdiction to another.
Correct.
And you traveled with a child.
Correct.
How old is your child?
She's 6.
Where had you been living?
In South Dakota, in Madison.
And where did you move to, sir?
Quad Cities, Illinois.
Who did you know in Illinois?
I knew nobody, but my apartment had flooded, and I had to move either way, and I disliked South Dakota tremendously. And
who lives in South Dakota?
All of my family.
So you were going to Illinois with a 6-year-old child, with someone with whom you were no longer romantically involved, just a friend, leaving your entire family and support system there. Did you have a job?
Within a week of moving to Illinois.
You found the job?
Yes.
What were you doing?
Working at the Army base.
Are you still there?
No, that was a temporary job. I've worked a series of temporary jobs since then.
Are you still in Illinois?
I'm in Iowa, across the border.
Who were you living with?
A friend.
Male friend or female friend?
Male.
When did you meet him?
When I moved to Illinois, about 3 weeks after.
And your daughter? Where's her father?
Her father is in South Dakota still.
Who's this?
This is my daughter's grandmother.
Her father's mother?
Yes.
Is your claim that when you moved with Mr. Rigsby to Illinois, you moved into his apartment, and that at some point he threw you out of the apartment and discarded your property?
My claim is that we got an apartment together where I was going to stay for about 2 months.
Was there a lease on the apartment?
In his name.
So then you didn't get an apartment together. He got an apartment.
With my money as well.
So what happened?
The day we arrived in Illinois, he began threatening me, saying he was going to have random women come over and beat me up, and when I was at work, he was going to throw my things out on the street, and a variety of things like that. And he got into my jewelry box a number of times, and 3 days in a row, I called and politely asked him not to dig in my jewelry box anymore.
Where did you call him?
On his cell phone, which I had gotten for him.
Why didn't you have this discussion when he came home? Was he not staying at home?
No, he wasn't.
When did he stop staying in his apartment?
The day he got it.
Why?
Because we didn't get along.
Where was he living?
Random women's apartments.
Who paid the rent?
It was split 50-50. There was 2 months free rent. There was a $450 deposit. I put down $200 on the deposit, and he put down $250.
So the first 2 months that you were there was no rent?
I was only there for 26 days.
So what you're telling me is you paid $200 to live there for 26 days?
Correct.
Okay. When did you come home and take her stuff and put it out at the curb, sir?
She was there for about a month. It was 2 days before the month was up. I put it on the curb. It wasn't on the curb. It was in front of the door. And this was like, I put most of it out there.
You told me curb. You wrote curb,
I meant,
sir.
Well, door, I meant.
Well, tell me the circumstances of surrounding
After,
you doing
let's see,
that.
I put all the little stuff out first. Hoping she'd come back because I didn't want to put the TV. She had a little 1980s TV and a little bamboo chair, and I didn't want to put it out there because I didn't want to steal it. A month and a half goes by, she still hasn't been there.
Are you telling me that she left the apartment?
She called the cops on me. After the month was up, I told her she'd stay there 1 month. I said, you have to get your own place. My landlord didn't even want her there. She hit my garage. She almost hit my landlord driving around.
A month is gone. And what happened?
I told her she had to go.
So did she leave?
Yeah, she called the cops on me.
She called the cops on you?
He said I was an intruder in my own home.
Okay. After the police arrived, what happened, Miss Highmark?
They said that there was no reason to arrest him.
There wasn't.
Besides his threatening me and bringing over people saying they were going to beat me up and taking
Miss Highmark,
things
get
of
over
mine.
it. I don't believe you, period. Keep going. So you
And
called
so
the police,
I called
and
the
the police
police.
said the lease to the apartment is in his name. They're not going to put him out. And what did you do?
I said I need a safe place to go. And they put me in a domestic violence shelter.
Perfect. So you left that night?
Yes.
When did you come back for your things?
Every day for the next month and a half.
Tell me how you went back.
I went back looking for his vehicle. His vehicle was not there. He was not there. So I left the note on his door saying I would be there the following Sunday at 2 p.m. I showed up, and he was not there. So I went over there consistently every day looking for his vehicle until finally one day I did find his vehicle there and called the police and had them knock on the door and ask if I could retrieve my belongings. And he said he no longer had them, although they were visible behind him.
What was visible behind him? A pot, you said.
There's crock pot, knife blocks, some dishes.
You mean you saw that from the door where you were standing?
What was in the kitchen I could see, because it was the kitchen door.
Okay.
This is the list right here of items.
Let me take a look at it.
Those are the list of things that I was not able to retrieve.
Where's her cat? You didn't take your cat?
I was going to a domestic violence shelter. I was not able to.
Did you see her cat?
No. That cat ran around outside all the time, and that cat was never around. She lost that cat the first 2 weeks she was there. She couldn't find it. I don't have no cat, and if I...
The cat was still there. The next day when I returned, the only belongings that he had put out on the curb were the empty litter box with the scoop and the cat food and a folder of papers.
So if I got a cat just running around doing this thing all over my house.
All of this stuff is maybe worth $1,000. Maybe, if I believe it's all there. $5,000 never happened. Discard her stuff. You can't put it out. Do you understand?
See, this is the thing. She knew I worked during the day. She knew when to come and get her stuff. I work anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a day. She knows, come at night.
Listen to me. You go to a local police precinct and you say, listen, this is what I have. I have all this junk, because all this is...
Junk.
Junk.
Yeah.
But it's her junk. It's not your junk. So you don't have the right to throw out her junk. You understand that?
I understand that.
It's annoying. She was annoying. I get it. But you have no right to dump her stuff. You have to preserve it for a reasonable period of time, considering the fact that she was removed from the house with her child, limited window of time. So you have to take reasonable care, especially since she did pay $200 towards the rent, right?
Yeah.
None of this stuff is worth, according to you, $6,574. Not on a great day is this.
I don't know what she's got up there,
$6,000.
but what she left was a 1980s TV, a piece of junk bamboo chair, some CDs, and a crock pot.
What'd you do with her CDs?
All that stuff was gone. I don't even listen to the CDs. Not even the type of music I listen to.
Right. Judgment for the plaintiff and the amount.
Yes, case number 28 on the calendar in the matter of Lamphere versus Chance. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ladies, have a seat.
Oh, I need a scorecard to go over this case, at least to try to explain it to Bird, who I know is going to pay very, very careful attention to the players. Mr. Lamphere, it is your claim, along with your wife, this is your wife, that you made a loan to Mr. Chance. I don't know about his wife, but certainly to Mr. Chance in the amount of $2,000. Mr. Chance says that this was not a loan, but a gift. And he is counterclaiming because he says that because he had a relationship with your wife, she decided to be vindictive and call his wife and his children and saying all kinds of nasty things about him. So he's counterclaiming for defamation of his otherwise pure character and slander. Right?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay. So what I gather is the two of you were not married.
Right.
Mr. Chance was separated from his wife.
That is correct, Your Honor.
What's your first name?
Mildred.
Mildred and
Terry.
Terry sort of got together.
Yes.
For a brief period of time.
Yes.
Before you and
George
got married. At some point, you needed money for a car.
Basically, yes.
And George gave you the money for the car.
No. The money did come from George. Millie is the one that got the money from George.
You had no contact with George.
Yes, at the time when when I received the money, it did come from George. Yes. Millie had set it up.
I don't care who set it up.
That's what I'm trying to explain.
You got the $2,000 from George.
Yes.
And you say George gave you that money as a gift.
Yes.
Okay, George. Tell me how that money came about.
Okay. Mildred and Terry come out the house. Mentioned that he needed some money to buy a car because their car was broke down. And she backed out of the whole picture.
Who backed out?
Mildred.
What do you mean she backed out?
She says it's up to you if you want to loan him the money.
Okay. How did you know, Terry?
That's not true.
Terry?
Yes, ma'am.
You'll have a chance.
Okay.
He was a co-worker with my wife now.
When were you married, by the way?
February 28th.
Now, what discussion, Mr. Lamphere, did you have with Terry regarding this $2,000?
He was getting cashing in his 401k, plus his income tax return was coming back, and he wanted to borrow it for 2 weeks, 3 at the most.
And that's what he told you?
Right.
He told you that, not Mildred. He told you that. And where did you get the money from?
Out of my checking account.
And do you remember the date when you gave it to him?
Yeah, March 1st.
When did you first ask him for the money back?
Oh, it was probably 4 weeks into it, 3 weeks.
Did you ask him or did Mildred?
Neither one of us really asked him.
Well, what happened?
He had informed Dee up at the bar one night.
This lady in the
This
green?
ladies.
Step up.
To
Just a second. Tell me your name.
Doreen Degg.
Ms. Degg, you work together with these people?
No, I frequent the bar where they were employees.
And did there come a time when you had a conversation about this $2,000?
Yes, he came up to the table I was sitting at on a Friday night and asked me if George and Millie were coming into the bar that night. And he told me that if I should see them or talk to him, to tell George he had something for him.
Did you see them that day?
No, I did not. I called her the next morning and informed her what he had told me the night before.
Okay, do you remember that conversation?
I remember speaking to her. It was about getting the message to George that I wanted to talk to him.
That you wanted to talk to him,
Yes.
not that she says you said you had something for him.
I didn't say I had anything for him.
Okay, but that you wanted to speak to George.
Yes.
Well, what did you want to speak to George about?
I wanted to speak to George.
Look at me. Don't look over there.
I wanted to speak to George about the lawsuit papers that my wife had received.
The lawsuit papers?
The small claims papers.
Oh, so they had already sued you for this $2,000.
Right, and what my main question was is why they were going after my wife.
Okay, so you hadn't had any prior discussion prior to being served with the papers with George about anything?
None whatsoever.
Okay, so you were surprised.
Very.
Why were you surprised, sir?
Because we had, I was seeing Millie,
Look over
I was
here.
seeing Millie in a relationship.
No, you're looking up at the ceiling.
I know.
I want you to take your eyes and fix them on mine.
Stress. Sorry, Your Honor.
No, that's not.
I had eye contact.
That's.
All righty. I had a relationship with Millie prior to her marriage. She was engaged, supposed to be breaking off the engagement. Things started to get a little out of hand.
Why did you want to talk to George, sir? Why did you tell Miss Degg that you wanted to speak to George?
Because I wanted to know why they were suing me and my wife when nothing was said about that money, about repaying it, about owing it, nothing.
Why would George give you $2,000?
Because
doesn't even know you.
Millie's the one that got it out of him.
Well, sir, is that what you wanted to tell George?
I eventually did tell George that.
When did you tell George that, sir?
My main reason for wanting to talk to George was why they were suing my wife. Because my wife had nothing to do with it whatsoever. My wife don't even know these people.
Mm-hmm.
And she has been put through hell and high water and back because of all this.
So you mean they should have sued you?
Yeah, I was the party involved.
Well, that might be a legitimate question.
And I had said to George when I did see him the next day, I said to him, I said...
So the next day, you saw George?
I believe it was.
Good. Tell me about the conversation that you had with him the next day. Tell me what he said to you and what you said to him.
I'll tell you exactly what was said. I said, why are you trying to sue my wife and sue me? He goes, I have nothing to do with it. That's on Millie. Is his exact words.
And you said?
I left.
Didn't say anything else, did you?
I said I left. I went to my attorney.
When did you have the next conversation with him?
I don't believe there was any after that.
Well, according to you, that's a lie, sir. According to your answer, that's not true. According to your answer, you had another conversation with him that you haven't told me about.
Okay. Can you refresh my memory?
Shouldn't have to, but I will. I decided that George should know who the woman he married really was. I went to their house and told them about the affair, which he said he had an idea something was going on with us. I also told him about Millie's plan to divorce him. When I did that, Millie started yelling and punching me. Mm-hmm. That was something I would remember.
That was prior, Your Honor. That was prior to that conversation about the lawsuit.
Just a second. What I said to you before was, when was the first time there was any discussion about the repayment of this money? And you said there wasn't. Clearly, that's not true. Clearly, before you got served with a summons, there was a discussion about repaying the money. Because that's when you supposedly, according to you, went to their house. What are you looking at me? Am I speaking a foreign language? Do you speak English?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Millie spoke up, oh, it's your dad's early birthday present, and had made comments that your mom's a worthless and don't know how to take care of you.
George and Mildred Lampier claim Mildred's ex-boyfriend, Terry Chance, and his wife, Irene, owe for an unpaid loan. Terry says his wife has nothing to do with the money.
By the way, I don't really believe you're involved as a defendant in this case, because whatever arrangement was made with your husband.
Yes.
It was a loan. There is absolutely no reason for these people to have given you $2,000. You don't look as if you're that good, sir. Trust me.
Excuse me,
Trust
Your
me.
Honor.
No, listen to me. I listened to you, and you have been unpersuasive in convincing me that these two people made you and the wife that they never met a loan for $2,000 to buy a car. You have been unpersuasive to me. You give your children, maybe, but a stranger, somebody that he knows because his wife-to-be knows you from work, even if she's having a fling with you, it's not a reason to give you $2,000. As I said, you don't look like you're that good. So you owe him $2,000. Now you've got a $4,000 counterclaim. And the $4,000 counterclaim is punitive damages due to slander and defamation. I'm prepared to hear your counterclaim.
Okay. First one being harassment.
No, you have to listen to me. You're supposed to be able to remember what you're suing him for
Right.
$4,000.
Okay, first one was for harassment, harassing my wife at work, continuous phone calls to my wife at work.
Just a minute, just a second. Who called you at work?
Mildred.
Mildred. And what did she call to say to you?
She kept repeatedly telling me that she was having an affair with my husband, which we
And was
separated.
that very distressing to you?
Yes.
Do you think that was as distressing to you as your husband telling her fiancé and her husband that she was no good and she was having an affair with him?
I'm sure it was.
Right. It's the way it goes. When you fool around, you have to accept the consequences. Put your hand down. What's next?
Second thing is when she said to my 12-year-old son when we had stopped at the house when I had the money in my pocket.
What money?
The money, the $2,000.
What do you mean you had it in your pocket?
No.
Shh, I don't.
I'm sorry.
What do you mean you had it in your pocket?
Millie was with me. We had stopped by because the money was in the form of a check, and I had pulled it out of my pocket because I gave my son some money. Okay, my son had asked me where I had gotten the money, and Millie spoke up, "Oh, it's your dad's early birthday present," and had made comments that your mom's a worthless and don't know how to take care of you. That's when we were out the door.
Just 1 second. Who was at the door?
Me, Millie, and me. I took her out of the house.
So the two of you left together?
Yes.
Did you give her back the money?
What's that?
What word didn't you understand?
I didn't
She
hear.
had just insulted you and your wife because you were dumb enough to bring her to your home or where your son was in order to give him money that you had just gotten from them. Did you give the money back?
No. If somebody handed you $2,000 said happy birthday, would you give it back?
Your counterclaim is dismissed, Mr. Chance. I would suggest you grow up. How long have you been married?
4 years. We've been together for 12.
He hasn't gotten any better.
Some of it.
Some of it. Not enough. Not enough. If you hitch your wagon to a falling star, eventually you're going to get caught in the mud. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Your counterclaim's dismissed. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,000. Get him out of here. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Revenge has just begun. Revenge has just begun.
Stayed in a hotel a couple of nights. The night before I got married.
Oh, yeah. Before, during, even on our wedding night.
We didn't sleep together because he couldn't perform.
It's far from done and over with.
He told me paybacks are hell.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter, Panic versus Burke. Step forward.
20-year-old hairstylist Cynthia Panic is suing her ex-boyfriend, 22-year-old psychiatric technician Brandon Burke, for breaking her computer screen. Brandon says he didn't do it.
Miss Panic, you and Mr. Burke lived together, I assume, for a brief period of time. You told him to move out. When you came home after he moved out, you found that your computer screen was broken. You say that Mr. Burke did it. You want him to pay for it.
Yes, I do.
Mr. Burke says, I didn't do it. So tell me what happened on the 31st of March.
We were going to try and resolve issues, and that night I had come home, and he works from 3 to 11, and normally Wednesday nights, which that was, we went to poker night, and I normally meet him up at work, and that night I didn't, and he called me, and I said that I didn't think we should see each other anymore, and that was basically the whole, it was over the phone. And
were you living together?
Yeah.
So you were telling him to get out?
Yeah. that
And where
damage
were
her
you when you
phone.
had this conversation?
I was out with a friend in a Walmart parking lot. I was on my phone.
And he was where?
He was at work or leaving work.
To go where?
Him, I don't know.
Where did you go?
I went to play poker with my friends.
Instead of going home after work at 11 o'clock, you went out to poker night.
Yes.
And when did you get home?
I got home around 2 a.m., ma'am.
And she wasn't home.
No, she wasn't.
So what did you do?
I had called my sister to tell her what happened. My sister showed up at the door, and she came in and talked to me for about 45 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
And was it your sister who helped you move your things?
It was my sister, her boyfriend, and my brother.
So they all came over very late?
No, they came over that next morning as soon as I woke up.
And when did you come home?
Around 2:30 the next day.
And is this your computer?
This is my computer.
And where is it broken?
It's all like right there. It's all cracked right there, and like all the cracks go down to about there because it's like when a rock hits a windshield, it like shatters. And now all
Okay, it was okay the day that you left?
It was okay the night that I left. Yeah.
Did anybody else have access to your apartment?
No.
Well,
is not an answer.
I apologize, ma'am. But I did not hit the computer. I didn't touch the computer. As soon as I got home, the computer was sitting on my couch that was there. The only contact I've seen that the computer had with the person was when my sister picked it up and set it on the ground. It was there for the next 24 hours until Cynthia got home around 2:30.
Well, you had your brother, and who else?
My sister's boyfriend and my sister, ma'am.
So there were several people in the house moving out your things. What kind of things did they move out?
We moved out my couch. We moved out my dining table with the chairs.
The couch that you moved out was the couch where that had been placed?
Yes.
So it is possible that one of the other people who were there moving out furniture could have stepped on it, could have knocked it over. Something could have happened when you were moving out these large pieces of furniture.
Well, it
That's
was
possible.
Yes, ma'am, it's possible. It was in a secure location where we didn't even have to need to maneuver around it to carry it out. And
Well, it would be a fair statement, Mr. Burke, that between the time she left and the computer was okay, and the time that you moved out, something happened to her computer.
Well, it could be possible, but it was closed when I got there, and she's saying that the damage is on the front side of the computer because she said I punched it out of malice intent.
She doesn't know what happened to it.
Yes, ma'am.
She doesn't know. She wasn't there. Now, I believe her when she says that when she left, the computer was intact.
Yes.
I believe that. And I'm not suggesting that you purposely damaged her computer. However, you invited 3 other people into the house for the purposes of moving furniture. And that damage was caused either by you or by your invited guests into the house. And you are responsible for their actions since you invited them to help you move. So while I'm not ascribing to you punching the computer, I am ascribing to you the cost of fixing it. Because it was either you or your sister or her boyfriend or your brother who, I know that this is not a word, but I love to use it anyway, vertently or inadvertently damaged her computer. Do we understand each other, Mr. Burke?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Now, have you gotten an estimate on getting a new screen?
I do.
What's the estimate?
It's $649.99 plus labor, so it's like $750.
Let me see. How much was the computer?
$1,112.11.
Okay. Well, I have $649.99.
It says plus labor on it, though.
But we don't know how much that is, right?
Yeah, but
Did you pay for it?
pay for it to get fixed? No, I haven't.
No, you didn't pay for it, so you don't know how much it is, how much the labor is. You know that it's $649.99, correct?
Correct.
That's all I have. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $649.99. Thank you.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy.
Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have seats, please.
Ms. Miller, I've read your complaint, and I gather you had no contact with your biological father your entire life. Is that correct?
This is true. He never knew I was conceived.
And as an adult, that started to probably pry on your mind, and you wanted to find him.
Correct.
Your complaint generally states that you befriended the defendant, or he you. You knew he had family in Italy, where your father, I believe, came from, where you believed still lived there, and you gave him $5,000 in the hopes of locating your father. You claimed that he did nothing to earn the $5,000, didn't find your father, and you want your money back.
This is true.
Okay. What efforts had you made to locate your father?
I had researched programs for people, 1-800-US Search, those type of programs to try and locate him. I have a unique situation because, of course, I was not adopted. He never knew I was conceived. He had flown back to Italy right in 1969 after he had met my mother. So I've never wanted to interrupt his family life. He never knew I was born. He was engaged to be married. I did not want to interfere. I wanted to find him directly. I had made many, many, many searches, called investigators, see how much it would cost.
For a long time. For how long?
At least 15 years. Adult life. I'm 30. At least 15 years. At my wit's end, I did befriend him. He was very cordial. I explained my situation. We are in the same workplace. So he said, I would love to help you. I do this for people. I would like to help you. So I said, wonderful, let's talk about it. He did graciously invite me to his home. His father was there, very, very nice to me. Both of them were very nice. Said this will be no problem. Came out with a folder explaining that he had done this for other people, different situations, but did know how to contact. Had a lot of resources and connections over there, that his father was the mayor of South Italy, la, la, la. I was like, wonderful, this is my one hope to find him. So we proceeded. About 3 months into it, just the verbal things, he did come up with, I need some more money. I'm going to need possibly money. No money was mentioned in the beginning. Came up with more money. I need more money because it's getting more in depth. I need to pay some people to do work for you over there because I'm not there, those type of things. I said, what's the money for? A little hesitant. I don't make a lot of money. What's it for? Am I going to, receipts, anything. But I understand if you're making long distance calls, I owe the phone calls, to Italy. Of course, valid. Time went on. He came back with, so I did reluctantly, but I did pay the money. That is a very large money, $5,000. That's, 4 or 5 months worth of my work. So I did pay the money. My mother was currently dying of cancer. She recently passed away October 11th. When he asked for the money, he did ask, I need you to sign a piece of paper, which I wrote up myself, indicating that you will allow me permission to get information over in Italy from the Italian consulate, the American consulate. I said, of course I will. I drew those up for him, and he claimed that's what he needed the money for, and that was to get passport information, different things that, to me, I would think you would have to pay services for.
Just 1 second. How did you know he was married and has 3 children?
My mother told me this. My mother said he was my father.
How did she know that he was married?
She had an affair with him for about 4 months. He was engaged to be married when they had met.
That's right. That's what you told me. That's what I didn't understand.
Right.
So she had some contact with him subsequently because...
None.
Well, how did you know to put in this letter that he married and has 3 children?
From the family here in San Diego.
And who got that information for you?
I have always had their phone number because I got it from 411. The great aunt and uncles. I never wanted to go to them.
Just a second. So
yes.
They told you that he is married and has 3 children?
That family.
That family?
Yes.
Not the
family.
defendant?
No, not the defendant.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes. At this point, he did ask for the money, asked for that paperwork. I did comply with him, and I gave it to him. The things that he verbalized to me after that had happened was that he found more information for me. Great. He found me this piece of paper, which you can show, and he provided me these numbers handwritten, and I went ahead and typed them up myself, and I even gave him, I believe, a copy back of that I typed up. These numbers, he claimed, was possible locations in different towns in Italy that my father, his name, may be under. Later on, he tells me, I found your father, confirmed he's in prison. I said, fine. I said, okay. I mean, he's never knew I was born. I'm not upset about that, but please find out. I don't want you doing anything, illegal, any of that. If he's a murderer, if it's something kooky like that, I will back down. I don't want to go there. I said, I just need the location. Once he finds he's in prison, great. What's the prison? Let me start writing a letter. Let me take it from here. So that was, I don't even remember the date, probably August, sometime in August. I made about 5 attempts at this point from August, and I have them written down, August 16th, 18th, 28th, and September 6th, where I went to his cafe and said, Marcello, because we cordially got along very well. I said, you've helped me out. I know he's in prison now. Great. I want to write the letter. Can I have my documentation where my $5,000 went? I want my phone bills. I want something in writing.
Just 1 second. Did you, in fact, ascertain that your father is the person who he reported is in prison?
Since then, I know that his information is completely inaccurate.
Is inaccurate?
Yes. 2 days ago, my witness here, George Cosentini, spoke to my father in Salerno. He has never been in prison. We confirmed that he is the birthday of which I gave him initially.
Okay.
And
Just a
my
second.
father
Go ahead.
does know my mother and was in his uncle and aunt's restaurant in 1969. Confirmed all that information. He has spoken to him twice.
Who are you, sir?
My name is George Cosentini.
Who does speak Italian.
Come stand here, Mr. Cosentini. How did you locate her father?
What I did was...
I was in a dead end with Marcello, so I decided I was desperate to go to the family. So I got the courage with my sister to go knock on my great aunt and uncle's home. Reluctantly, they were wonderful people, welcomed me, believed that this was true, recalled memories of my mother, were crying, and in which case gave me the number, I'm sorry to interrupt, gave me the number of my father's sister, said, unfortunately, I don't know where my nephew is, but my sister, his sister will definitely know. Give her a call. So at that point, after that day, I brought him the number, and I said, please call the jail to verify that his stuff is inaccurate, that it's not my father.
First of all, there are
This is the sheet he gave
there are
me.
no addresses or zip codes if we were to contact the jail. But I did call the jail, and the phone number that we got from information of the Italian consulate said that there was a in prison in Naples. And then I proceeded to ask, can we write letters? Do you know how long he'll be there? Because we're not going to make a trip there if we can't see him or write letters. Then I proceeded to let her know this information. Yes, this is in jail. I said, let me go a little further. Let me call your aunt and just pretend that I'm going to go visit and we want to see her brother, which would be her father. I said, can we have the number? We're going to be there pretty soon. Hoping she would say, he's in jail or he's this, to confirm what Marcello had done for her.
Then it would be done.
She said, oh yes, I'll give you the number at his home. And I went, at his home? She goes, yes. So I reiterated, I'll go, this is at his home number?
He calls immediately, said, this is my situation. I have a friend here in America, does not speak Italian. Her mother knew you. Do you know this name, Phyllis Miller? Oh, cried, emotional. Said, I knew your mother, her mother in 1969, and I want you to come visit. She has a daughter, and that's how he got there.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Kai Miller says she gave $5,000 to former friend Marcello Nicoletti so he could find her estranged father. Kai says he didn't do anything to earn the money.
Go ahead.
Now, I don't want to let her know why we're calling.
Sensitive.
So I kind of covered it up, sugarcoated by saying, my father knew your brother.
Okay, but in the meantime,
I called.
There's a happy ending to your story so
I
far.
called her father.
It's a happy ending to your
And
story.
spoke to
So
him
far,
twice.
you haven't gone to Italy yet, I assume?
February 8th. We are
So
leaving.
you're going?
Yes.
Okay. So the only issue that I have for you, Mr. Nicoletti, is you were given this $5,000. It's clear that the person that you located was not her father.
The person she told me to locate the person, it was in jail.
No. The person that you located was not her father.
I don't know.
It is
Your
not.
Honor.
Trust me. Mr. Nicoletti, the person that you located in jail is not her father. You are certainly entitled to be reimbursed for any expenses that you have. Nobody expects you to be out of pocket any money whatsoever to help her. All she wants to know is, since you did not locate her father...
And this is what I get. Sorry, ma'am.
Since you did not locate her father, she wants to know exactly what you spent money on and who you paid the money to, and some proof by way of receipts, Western Union money orders, etc., where you spent the money, which is most reasonable. So, do you want to show me?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good.
First of all, when she approached me in Maine, she was telling me about she was looking for...
No, I got the whole story.
Okay.
Listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying to you. You are entitled to be compensated for any out-of-pocket expenses because that's what you said you needed the money for, not for your fee. You weren't talking about a fee for you. You said, I need money to be compensated for expenses. You did not find her father. Just show me proof by way of receipts of what money you actually spent.
Your Honor, these are the phone bills where my father called the person several times.
I asked 5 times for those. Why didn't I get those?
You called already. Let me
Yeah,
talk to the judge,
Miss Miller.
okay? Please.
Miss Miller.
I was quiet all that.
I respect.
Please.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. This is a receipt for the people in Italy. This is the Federal Express, which I got it from the Federal Express right here.
Okay.
This right here, the letter she signed me, where it says authorize my father and I to locate this person. This is the list with all the people that the family.
No. I don't want to see that. All I want to see is the money
this right here.
that you spent.
Okay.
Just a minute. You speak Italian and read Italian?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you please translate that for me?
I'll do the best I can. It's not perfect.
How do I know this wasn't typed up yesterday?
Just a second. Listen, Miss Miller, I asked him to do me a favor and to please translate it for me.
Yes, ma'am.
The below written received the sum in U.S. dollars of $5,000 from used for.
You want to help you?
Used to locate
the person indicated
as,
below.
Yeah. I mean, I don't read Italian, but you can.
More or less, you understand?
Yeah.
Mr. Nicoletti.
Yes.
Is what you're suggesting, sir, that I believe that you sent her entire $5,000 to somebody in Italy?
Apparently, I'll tell you the way we sent the money to Italy. My father used to work for the government for 40 years. Used to be an attorney, worked for the government.
No, just listen to my question, sir. Do you expect me to believe that you sent the entire $5,000 to somebody in Italy? That's either a yes or a no.
You're the judge. I think you make a decision. I think you should believe it.
Very good. Then I'll be the judge and I'll make the decision. You gave her this list, sir. Is that correct? Is this the exhibit that you gave to her?
My
Show it
father's
to him.
name is spelled wrong.
Am I speaking to you?
I never give it to her, this one here, Your Honor.
Where did that list come from, Miss Miller?
It came directly from him after the 5th time of requesting. I came back to him September 9th and said, why is my father's name spelled wrong? And he says, my son wrote it.
Your Honor, you look at the writing. This is my writing right here.
Let me see it, sir.
This is my writing.
Let me see it.
This is my...
I'm good.
No. You had this piece of paper, sir, in your packet of papers.
No, I don't have it, ma'am.
You don't have this
No,
piece
I don't have it. You want to check? I don't have
paper?
it. No, ma'am. I don't have it.
Where did you get this from?
Directly from him at our company.
Yeah, why would she have this? She wouldn't have this.
I came back to him upset.
She wouldn't have prepared
it wasn't
this.
valid.
But why should I give it all the items, what they
Because
spent,
that's what I
which
kept
I don't know?
asking for.
Miss Miller.
Excuse me, you
Miss
want to
Miller.
just calm down?
Mr.
I'm listening.
Nicoletti, do I look like I'm in charge?
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Miss Miller, if you speak to him again, I'm going to dismiss your lawsuit.
I understand.
That would be very unhappy for you.
Very unhappy for me.
You understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Nicoletti,
Yes.
there is no question in my mind that you prepared this.
No, ma'am.
You or someone, or your wife, or your brother, or your father, or somebody else prepared this, because there would be no reason for her to have any of this information on here. The phone, USA phones, 450, police cap, Italy, Napoli, officer something, police, Italy, Napoli, City Hall, persons, 2, Napoli, $1,200, gas and transportation, $250, expenses, $450.
Hold it.
She
Your
didn't
Honor.
make this up.
Hold the Honor. When I was talking on the phone, I just remember my son. He was on the phone with my father and tell him the money was spending. He wrote that piece of paper, my son. My son.
Sir, you brought in phone bill.
Yes.
The phone bill, including Western Union, was $196.32. You wrote here $450.
I tell you, because when my father called Italy, he left a message to the letter he wrote. He never was to his office, so he returned a phone call to my father to let him know what the situation was. For this reason, the bill was $3, $4, man. And he charged my father the phone bill when he received in Italy.
Well, then it's your responsibility, sir, to have gotten those phone bills from him. Listen to me carefully, sir. The only phone bills you have, this is what you've given me in response to my question. You've given me this piece of paper, which I do not believe.
Why? That's a DHL. That's legal. You own it with the envelopes.
Sir, I believe the DHL, and I believe the receipt. I don't believe that you sent $5,000 to Italy.
Really?
Really. I believe that you have a Western Union here where you sent the total amount charged was $172 that included a $22 service charge.
Correct.
Right. And what else did you bring me? Nothing. Those are the two expenses that you have. $172 and $196.32. Now, you have to understand, Ms. Miller, it is very, very possible that there were people in Italy who were not as friendly as the defendant and who didn't like you or didn't feel as if they wanted to help you but wanted to be compensated for what they'd been doing.
Understandable.
You understand that. And clearly there were phone calls that were made from Italy to the United States with information. Now, they talked for here 12 minutes, 10 minutes, not a lot of money. $1.07, gee, it's cheap to call Italy. Let's give this gentleman the benefit of the doubt that the money that was spent from the other end on the telephone was $250. Right?
There.
Now, somebody had to go to a police station. Somebody had to go and find out what he was convicted of, this person who turned out not to be your father,
right?
Where he was. All of that takes time.
Sure.
Right? Who is this person, Mr.
He's in the police department for almost 30 years in Italy.
Is he still in the police department?
Yes, Your Honor. You know, in Italy, when you want looking for someone, you have to be careful because they don't know who they deal with sometimes. You know, they have to follow a person, they have to see who, you know.
Let's understand each other. The easiest thing in the world, if your father knows somebody who's in the police department, and Italy is not a backward country, they all have computers, the same kind of computers that we have here in the United States. The first thing that you would do to look for somebody is to put their name and date of birth in a computer. And that's what your friend did. And it came up with this name in this prison. That's convicted such and such a date, currently serving a sentence of. You know how long that took? As long as it took me to say it. Let's say it was worth $500. All told, that's $893. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $4,107. That's all.
You may be seated. Ladies, have seats.
Ms. Redden, the defendant is your mother-in-law. Are you still married to her son?
Yes.
He's in the armed forces?
Navy.
How long has he been away?
He's been gone since December 6th.
According to your complaint, your mother-in-law owes you for rent and for other conduct that caused you loss of wages, harassment, whatever. Your mother-in-law says she lived with you for a brief period of time. She didn't stay there the entire month. She shouldn't have to pay rent. And she doesn't think that anything that she did rises to the level of harassment. Is that right, Mrs. Redden?
That's true, Your Honor.
All right. Your mother-in-law came to live with you when?
December 4th.
Why?
Because my husband was leaving for deployment and I don't drive. I also have 3 small children who I was going to need help with.
How old are they?
They're 3, 4, and soon to be 2.
Are these your only grandchildren?
Yes, they are, Your Honor.
So you asked your mother-in-law to come to do you a favor?
Pretty much.
Where was she coming from?
Oregon.
Is this your only child?
Yes, it is.
How long have you lived in Oregon, by the way?
40 years off and on.
So you were really relocating?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, what do you think she owes you for?
There was an agreement between her and my husband that was made over the phone that there was conversation back and forth that I was thinking about when she moved out to get a job for a second income. And when he'd mentioned that to her, she said, no, I don't need to get a job, that she'd pay $700 when she moved every month for her to move in.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm disabled. I have a VA pension that I get monthly.
Go ahead.
So she agreed that it was going to be $700 a month.
I heard that.
That way I wasn't going to have to get a job because for some reason she didn't approve of the fact that I wanted to get a job.
Right, that sounds perfect to me. I would rather you stay home and watch 2, 3, and 4-year-olds. Let you watch them. You made them. You watch them. Why should she watch them? She's already raised hers. Right? You have a lot of little children. A lot of little children could drive you crazy if you're with them 24/7. So it's nice to go out and get a job. You know, you're with adults all day and you leave somebody else to take care of your kids. Okay, so you agreed to give her $700 a month so she wouldn't go out to get a job and take care of her own children?
Yes, ma'am. And
okay, that sounds very nice. Shh. That sounds very nice of you so far. Relocating from a place you lived for 40 years to come and help your daughter-in-law because your son was going off to serve his country and you were coming to assist her.
Yes, ma'am.
So what happened?
She moved in December 4th. First few months, things were fine. Then in February, she had mentioned that SeaWorld out in San Diego was doing a job fair and that they were hiring. She brought it up to me stating, oh, I think you should try to do it. You know, it's a job, you know, I'll stay home, I'll watch the kids while you get this job. I went, I applied, got the job, and then we left for a weekend in Fresno because...
Who left?
All of us, my 3 kids, myself, and her, drove up to Fresno because my youngest sister was having a baby shower. Well, while we're in Fresno, things were perfectly fine. We come back from Fresno, I get the job, and then she starts, as soon as I start working, she starts getting attitude with me because I'm working and I'm not home all the time.
Just a second. You had disagreements with her over being out of the house during the day when you were supposed to be working?
The days that I was working, she started having problems with the fact that I was working long hours.
Oh, well, were you working long hours?
I was working between 5 and 8 hours a day.
Okay, and what was the original plan? How many hours were you supposed to work?
She didn't give me well, I'd only appreciate it if you worked this many hours a day. It was just,
But we're not talking about you going out socializing after work.
No, I'd go to work. She would drop me off at work. She would come pick me up from work, and we'd go home.
How far is the workplace from your home?
It's about a 10, 15-minute drive from my house.
Okay, and when she would come to pick you up, she'd come with the 3 children?
Yes.
So far, she sounds like a saint to me.
It may sound like she was a saint, but there wasn't. There were disagreements throughout the house.
I don't care whether there were disagreements or not. So far, she sounds like a saint to me. Go ahead, keep going.
So I started working. Deborah, who's my witness, was also working with me. She started the same exact day I started, and we were working pretty much the same hours. So I'd asked Donna if it was okay if we'd give Deborah a ride home, because Deborah lived about half an hour away from work, and she was taking the city bus to and from work, which is about a 2-hour ride. She didn't have a problem with that either. Well, then it started in conversation that Deborah was going to move in with me because she was having issues at home. She just wasn't getting along with her mother very well. Her father was also out on deployment in the Army. Well, Donna apparently took it into her head that the reason I was having Deborah move in was a ploy to get her to leave my house, which wasn't true because Deborah was actually moving in to help.
Deborah has children?
No.
So why wasn't she working more hours and you working less hours?
Because she's under 18, she's 17, and because of California laws, she can only work so many hours.
She's 17 years old, and she wasn't getting along in her house?
Correct.
Why wasn't she getting along in her house, do you think?
I don't know. That's between her and her parents.
Right. That didn't give you any cause to pause if a 17-year-old has to move out of her house because she's not getting along with her parents?
No, because I had issues with my parents.
So keep going. I'm still waiting for this lawsuit. I don't get a lawsuit. I get a saga, but not a lawsuit.
The evening of Easter Sunday, Deborah comes home. She sits me down. She's like,
she moved into the house yet?
She had.
And?
Deborah came home Sunday evening and told me that that afternoon when Donna had picked Deborah up from work at about 4 o'clock, that both of my children, the boys, had both unbuckled their seatbelts in the car. And she was driving a little faster than she normally would and slammed on the brakes. Slammed on the brakes so hard that it sent my 4-year-old son flying into the middle console of my van and hurt his stomach. Well, we got into the car the next morning because she was taking me to work, and she'd made some snide remark towards my son about buckling in. And I'd asked her, I was like, what is this that I hear about the boys not being buckled in and that you'd hurt Connor's stomach? She's like, yeah, I did.
When you came home, did Connor complain of a bad stomach?
No.
Keep going.
So she's like, yeah, I did it. She was like, I did it because I was teaching them a lesson that they didn't need to have their belts unbuckled. So she tells me that she'd stopped prior to this before and that she tried buckling them in and they wouldn't stay buckled up.
Okay, so she made excuses. Keep going.
Right.
I'm waiting for the lawsuit, Miss Redden.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You had to watch your own children that you made because she was in bed.
So that gives her the right to threaten my life with a gun?
I don't hear threatening.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Veronica Redden says her mother-in-law, Donna Redden, owes for rent and for emotional distress. Veronica claims Donna threatened her life with a gun.
It's all very interesting, but you have to tell me what you're here for.
Well, the whole car incident was what led me to suing her because I'd come home early on the 29th from work. And in a binder that I have that has the bills that we have monthly, she had scribbled out what she was supposed to be paying me for the month. and left some remark about how she wasn't an idiot and she wasn't going to pay me.
You mean she wasn't going to pay you the $700 a month?
Right, because she didn't feel that she needed to because she's taking care of the kids more and everything. But prior to
just
that...
a second. Miss Redden, so this is what your lawsuit is about. Now we're getting there very swiftly. Your lawsuit is about she didn't pay you for the last month or so.
No, it was actually what I'm suing for is the first month she lived with us in December.
How many months did you work that she lived there?
I only worked a month.
Fine. And for that 1 month, had she paid you the $700?
No, because we made a prior agreement.
How many $700 payments did she make towards the house?
January and February.
And she left in March?
She left on the 30th of March, so the very end of March.
Shh. When did you get the job at SeaWorld?
The 26th of February is when I started orientation.
So you were working the month of March?
Yes.
Listen to me. If what you're telling me is that you came home and you saw her scratched out that she was going to give you $700 a month because she said that wasn't your arrangement. She wasn't going to watch your kids while you went to work.
No, that was the arrangement when I got the job. She agreed to watching the children.
Right, just a second. Just a second. She agreed to watch your children, Miss Redden, and not pay you rent.
It had nothing to do with the rent. She agreed.
Listen
to me.
Listen to me, my dear. Let's go back to the original conversation. Mrs. Redden, do I look like I need help from you?
No, ma'am.
I mean, she's got a lot of growing up to do.
I agree.
She's going to start today.
Thank you.
Your husband had, according to you, an agreement with his mother. His mother said, I don't want her to go out and get a job for a second income. I'll come, and so she doesn't get a job and stays home and watches her children. I'll put in $700 towards running of the household. Then she comes, relocates hundreds and hundreds of miles from a home that she's had for 40 years in order to assist you. Let me tell you what you just told me. She takes care of your children because you decide that you want a job. You want to go to SeaWorld. You want to be amongst people. You don't want to deal with 2-, 3-, and 4-year-old babies 24/7. That's the hardest job in the world, taking care of 3 little children. It's much easier to be amongst adults where you can meet other reputable people, like a 17-year-old who can't get along with a family. Right? So you go to SeaWorld, and because you don't drive, she puts your 3 children in the car, drives you to work. Then you meet Miss Yuckum over here. And you say, I don't want my friend to have to travel 2 hours by bus. Your mother-in-law says, fine, I'll pick her up or I'll drive her home so she doesn't have to take the bus 2 hours each way. Then, genius that you are, you say, I think I'm going to have her move in with me. I assume that you just met her at SeaWorld, so you know squat about her background. You don't know whether she's got a drug problem, an alcohol problem, a boyfriend problem, whether she steals, whether she's got a criminal history. You know nothing about her. You bring her into your house, and within a relatively short period of time, Miss Troublemaker causes a problem between you and your mother-in-law, and you've had months. You know, she drove you to your sister's house or to a baby shower. She does whatever you ask her to do. And she is rewarded for that by you suing her. Not only for rent, but for harassment, losing your job. Just a minute. Losing your job, damages due to mental distress. What mental distress did you have?
She threatened my life.
Tell me about that.
The night of the 29th, I'd come home from work with Deborah.
With Deborah?
Yes, because...
With Deborah. Go ahead.
We'd gotten into an argument about the scribbling that she put in my little binder thing. So I'd asked her about it. And she said that if I didn't agree with the $200 she was willing to pay, then she wasn't going to pay me anything. So I told her she either had to email my husband or she had to pack up and get out.
That was nice of you.
It's because we were having issues way prior to this.
What kind of issues were you having way prior to this?
She would make up excuses on her being sick and spend days in her bedroom. She'd go off.
You mean you'd have to watch your own children? Give her a tissue. You mean you'd have to watch your own children?
It had nothing to do with watching my own children.
Well, what if she decided to stay in bed? What does that have to do with you? What does that have to do with you? If she
Her
decided...
agreement for moving in was so that she could help with the children.
So you had to watch your own children that you made because she was in bed.
So that gives her the right to threaten my life with a gun?
I don't hear you. I don't hear threatening.
She had walked up the stairs because she supposedly was going upstairs to pack. Her exact words as she was walking up the stairs was, "Do not come upstairs. I have a loaded .38 and I will use it."
So that gave you emotional distress?
That
I mean,
scared the crap out of me.
Just a second. That gave you emotional distress?
CPS was called because of this, and CPS threatened to take my children away.
Because of why?
Because I didn't drive.
You have anything you want to say to me?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, she was standing at the bottom of the stairs holding her youngest baby, 21-month-old daughter, in her arms with Deborah standing next to her, trying to pick a fist fight with me. And I said, "Ronnie, you don't want to mess with me." First of all, I was so mad, she would have left the house in an ambulance. I didn't want to do that because they'd have had me thrown in jail for assault. There would have been a restraining order against me. I didn't want that. I just wanted to pack my stuff and leave as soon as I could. And I said, and so I just said, turn around and started walking up the stairs, and I said, "And don't come upstairs because I got a loaded .38, and that's all I said.
Okay.
And the gun was not loaded. The bullets were locked away.
That's between you and the police department, whether you have a
Yes,
loaded
ma'am.
.38 in your license. I don't want to know about it.
Okay.
That doesn't cause her emotional distress. What caused her emotional distress is that she was going to have to take care of her own children.
I agree. I
Okay.
agree.
Now,
Yes.
you want to tell me, is there anything you want to tell me about Child Protective Services?
I think the reason Child Protective Services came is because after things had quieted down, I walked across the street to 7-Eleven, and one of the police officers that had been at the house was over there. Well, I stressed to him to the fact that I love those children dearly, and I hated to leave them in the predicament that they were going to be coming into, and that I was really afraid that they were not going to be taken care of the way children should be taken care of. And the
Okay, and
next
as a
morning
result of
is
that,
when-
they called Child Protective Services.
And the next morning, Child Protective Services was at the door.
Where are you now?
Oh, I'm back in Oregon now.
Okay, have you been in touch with your son?
No, ma'am. I cannot email him.
Her son wants nothing to do with her.
Why did you leave your house at age 17?
I live in a house with 8 other women.
What do you mean 8 other women? You have a mother?
With my mom and my sisters and my grandmother and my sister's friend.
Yes.
It's just, I wanted to leave.
What do you do now?
I'm going to school.
Who supports you?
I support myself. I work at also.
Do you pay her rent?
Yes.
How much do you pay her?
I pay her $100.
Who watches the children?
We work opposite shifts. So I watch during her shifts and she takes care of them.
So
during
you
mine.
watch her 3 babies?
Yes.
Very good. Sit down. Yes.
I might also add that, as far as I know, Deborah's boyfriend is now living with them in the home.
That
too.
sounds more right than anything else.
Yes.
That sounds like a reason one might not want to live with one's mother and grandmother.
Yes.
Deborah's boyfriend does not live with us. It's just the two of us at home.
How old is the boyfriend?
I have no idea. I've never met him, but when I left, supposedly he was on his way from Portland, Oregon, to come down and move in with them.
What's his name?
His name's Cody. But
Cody. How old is he?
19.
Does he go to school?
Yes.
Where?
He does internet classes right now. He's taking a course.
Please. Listen to me, Mrs. Redden. You have to keep your fingers crossed. There is nothing else you can do.
I pray.
That's what happens when babies make babies.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all. And when babies make not 1 baby, but 3 babies, that's a big problem. You keep your fingers crossed. You hope that God is watching over them. Your case is dismissed. Grow up!
Ma'am?
Mind your eyes, please. You may step out. 3 on the count in the matter of Carrillo versus Sanchez. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Mr. Carrillo, the defendant is your mother.
Yes,
How old are you?
I'm 18.
The big ticket item on your complaint is a car.
Correct.
And you say when you were 17, you purchased a car. Because you were 17, the car couldn't be in your name. It was in your mother's name. But you had taken out $5,000 from your bank account and put that down as a down payment.
Correct.
You left home, your mother kept the car, and you want your $5,000 back.
Correct.
That's the big ticket item. And then you say that there were some items of personal property that belonged to you in the house, some rifles, some rifle holders that your mother refuses to give you. And you have a counterclaim, Ms. Sanchez, against your son, because you said when he left, he took a computer that was supposed to be left there for you and his sisters.
For his sisters, for school.
So let's deal with the car first. That's the big ticket item.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, the $5,000 that's was the down payment. I have the court order that was for the money that was in the account, which was supposed to have gone to me when I turned 18. And would you like to see that?
Yes.
Altogether,
Just a minute. $7,500, at least of the money, came as a result of what, an accident?
Uh-huh.
And he was the victim of this accident. What
Right.
kind of car accident?
I sued for medical bills and
Whatever.
paid in separate, yeah.
This is an inference compromise, which means that this $7,500 is his money.
And it was modified when he was 10.
Show me.
I didn't be able to get that.
Then that's
I'm sorry.
all I have.
Yeah, he took all the papers, a lot of court papers.
That's all I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had a briefcase full of documents, which include bank statements, proof that I had paid her money, and she had taken that out of the storage as well.
All right, now.
Paid me money?
Don't argue with each other, please. It's very unfortunate when a child has to be involved with a parent in a lawsuit. Where is this car now?
I have it.
How much was the total purchase price of the car?
Close to $7,000 after we financed it.
Okay. Who's been paying the notes on the car?
I have.
I had paid it until I had moved out.
How many months did you pay?
I had paid it from January until May.
So since May of this year, you've been making the payments.
And the insurance on the car.
Have you been driving the car?
Yes.
Okay, well,
Because he no longer wanted the car.
Well, the car has to go back to him. The car has to go back to him. You have the title to the car?
No, it's still financed, and the car, he didn't want the car anymore. He asked me to take over the payments. He also
No, either the car goes
stopped,
back to him, so that if he wants to, he can sell it and get his $5,000 back, as long as the note is then put in your name. Do you understand?
Correct.
I told him to go take the rest of the money back out of the bank and pay it off if he wanted it, because I found a letter stating that he was drinking. And instead of paying it off, he turned around and bought another car, because he didn't want the car. He told me that I could have it. And then from the sales from my car that I sold was going to go to him.
Is that what he told you?
Yes.
And you say that's not what?
No, I had mentioned in March that I had wanted to put the car in my name. She said no.
You
because
never did that.
Don't
she said no because we had to refinance it, and she didn't want to go through that. Then I told her if she wanted that car, she would pay me like $4,000, and then she could have the car and take over the payment.
You're not getting any money. Let's understand this. You're either getting the car back, or your mother can sell it now, which I think is probably a good idea. And if your agreement was that she should give you $4,000 for the car, that's what you just told me.
Correct.
Just a minute. That's what you just told me. That's what you told me.
The initial agreement, and then
all right. So the initial agreement would probably still be valid today, because
we had never brought anything up after that. That was just something we just stated.
Do you want the car back, or do you want her to sell the car?
I'd rather have the car back.
You'd rather have
I
the
need
car?
the car.
Correct.
Just what?
I need the car.
Then pay the. Listen.
I'm paying for it.
No. You have to give him back the money. He took money out
We didn't have
his
an
account.
arrangement. He gave me the car.
No, listen to me. I don't believe you.
My daughter
No. I don't believe you that he gave you
No,
the
I was to
car
pay the loan
with
off.
with the money that he put in from his trust.
He never asked me for $4,000.
Good.
Just
Then
the
I will-
$3,000 to pay
then
the
I
loan
will
off.
draft an order indicating that within 30 days this car is to be sold, and the first $4,000 is to be turned over to him. Now, with regard to the rifles, tell me about the rifles.
Okay, the rifle she had given to me about 12 years ago.
When you were 6 years old?
Yes, it was approximately then. And then I had them in my possession since about the age of 9. And she has told almost every member of the family that those were mine.
Where did they come from?
They were, I believe, our grandfathers.
Which I inherited when my parents passed away.
Tell me about the rifles. Where were they kept?
They were in my room until I had the baby, and then I told him, let's put him in your room, because he's the only one out of all my children that I trusted to be responsible, because he's a very good boy. I never ever had troubles with him. I've never had to really discipline him. And he knew that those rifles would only go to him after I passed away. I have it in my will, which he took and opened, and he wasn't.
Let me see.
She showed me the will the day she wrote it up.
It was sealed from my lawyer.
You gave me a copy, and
Just
we
a
put it
second.
in
I don't care whether
Bible.
you stole it, and I just want to see whether or not what the date of this will is. This is a will dated 1999. Okay, so well before you moved out of the house.
Correct.
To my son Valentine, that's you.
Mm-hmm.
I leave 2 rifles to be given to him upon reaching the age of majority.
But I've had it in my possession ever since I was 9.
I don't care.
Only because of the baby.
I don't care. I mean, in your possession, but you lived in the same house as your mother,
Correct.
right? So until you reach majority, you have no space. She owns the air you breathe. She owns the house, she owns your room, she owns everything that's in it, unless I find that she made a clear gift to you. And this is evidence that she did not make a clear gift to you prior to 1999, as you said, when you were 6 years old, because she has disposed of this property by way of a will. When anything happens to your mother, you get the guns. I'm not losing any sleep over rifles. You have to understand that.
Fine.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Valentin Carrillo says his mother, Brenda Sanchez, owes for the down payment on a car. Valentin also claims his mom won't surrender his collection of rifles.
I've just taken care of the car and the rifles. Between the 2 of you, now let's take care of the computer. According to the answer and the counterclaim, there were 2 computers. One of them was a new one that you either assisted with or helped him purchase for himself, and the understanding was that he didn't need both computers and one was going to be left in the house. Now, you took 2 computers when you left.
Correct. The computer that she's talking about, I had actually given to my younger sister, Maria. And I had told her a week before that I was going to leave, that I was going to take the computer because I knew my mom was going to try to sell it, because that was what she wanted to do, was sell it to a friend of hers.
I would never sell it, you know that.
Just a second.
She was going to sell it to a friend of hers that was
Money
one
that
of the
would have gone
parents
to
that...
you.
I don't want to hear you fighting with him now. Where is your
There's-
sister living?
She's in Mexico because she abandoned him.
I did not.
How old is your sister?
My sister is 17.
Who is she living with in Mexico?
My uncle.
My daughter, the day he moved out, he told her there is no way in that I would leave this computer for any of you guys.
Oh, no.
And she was there. He just dumped everything on the floor, and he just tore the house up.
I just want to know who you are.
I'm his older sister, her daughter.
Okay. And your 17-year-old sister was living in Mexico
Yes.
with an uncle,
Correct.
whose address you have.
Yes.
The second computer is going to be sent within the next 5 days to your older daughter in Mexico, who is 17.
She's not going to
living
be in Mexico. She's coming home Saturday.
If she's coming
She
home.
wants to return home.
If she's coming home Saturday, you check, and if she's coming home Saturday, wherever she is, she gets the computer. Do you understand?
Yes.
Perfect. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
When he turned 18, he just all of a sudden just changed.
She should have never took her son's car. She should not take nothing from her children, but everything that she can, she takes from her children.
I hope we can get back together. I love my son very much.
She'd have to go through therapy or something.
And now the next case.
All parties on the matter of Frasica versus Rivera. Step forward, please.
24-year-old nursing assistant Amanda Frasica is suing the father of her daughter, 25-year-old truck driver Jose Rivera, for the cost of an engagement ring and for unpaid bills when they lived together.
Ms. Frasica, your lawsuit has 2 parts to it. Let's take care of the easy part first. You and the defendant live together, and you have a child.
Yes, we do.
Together. And there came a time when you became engaged.
Yes.
The first part of your lawsuit says that the defendant returned your engagement ring and got the money.
He returned it without my knowledge, and once I found out, there was a big to-do about it.
That's not true.
Just a second. Well, clearly you're no longer engaged. You're no longer together.
No.
You don't get that.
Okay.
So that takes care of the first part of your lawsuit. Second part of your lawsuit says that when he left in April, he left some outstanding bills.
Yes.
What outstanding bills do you claim he owes you?
I have a phone bill, I have cable bill, I have a credit card bill, and another calling card that I paid by the month.
What was your financial arrangement with him while you were living together?
Originally, when we were living with my parents, all the money was supposed to go into the bank. Once we moved into our apartment, the bills were supposed to be 50-50, but it never worked out that way.
Can I see the bills that you say are outstanding? Okay. Mr. Rivera, while you were together with the plaintiff, is this a credit card that you would use together?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any problem with paying for half of this bill?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Okay, that takes care of that bill. Then we have a phone bill, and you're asking him to pay for half of that.
No, I'm asking him to pay for the whole bill because, as you can see, the calls made on it were all made to his family's household. He was out of work, on the phone, calling his family. I'm at work trying to pay the bills, and no sooner was I making the money, it was being back out the window, being spent again.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, she's saying that I didn't have a job. The first job that I had on hand, she got me fired from. Second job that I had, I only had 15 hours to work. And I mean, I just had a lot of problems going to work because of Amanda just making things difficult for me to go to work.
Like what? Like how?
Just complaining about bills not being paid and just...
So your response to that was not to work?
No, I did work. The first
No,
job...
but your response to that was not to work full-time because she was complaining about the bills?
No, I was working full-time. I had a full-time job, which I was working as a waiter. Amanda got me fired from the job by going to the job and throwing my clothes in front of everybody. I got fired from that job.
When was that?
I don't even remember the date, when exactly it was.
What other bills do you claim he owes you?
There's the cable bill there also, which you can see. I just want the movies paid for, not the fees for the cable box or anything.
Well, what had been your history with the defendant? If he ordered movies and you got the whole bill in, did you just pay the whole bill out of a joint account?
It was said if we went over and beyond the regular cable itself, like if he wanted to get a premium channel, he would pay for it. I wasn't going to pay for it because I felt no need for it. I wasn't at home. And if we were going to order any movies beyond that, we were responsible for paying for that.
I want to tell you something. This sounds like a very convoluted financial arrangement between two people who are living together, have a child together.
Well, we had a budget written out about what our regular expenses were. If he chose to go over that, he was responsible for it. If I chose to go over it, I was responsible for it. I mean, he was pretty well provided for, and with the whole fact of him talking about me making it difficult for him to go to work. My father bought us a car. I insured it. I got it inspected. I got it put on the road. He drove it. I mean, so I didn't make it hard for him. You know, he used to drop me off at work and use the car.
When I say she made it hard for me to go to work, Your Honor, I mean, she used to call my job and harass my job, harass me at my job.
How did she call your job and harass you at your job?
I called his job to ask if he was there.
She, for some reason, thought that any girl who was working with me, I was cheating on her with her. And I mean, and she used to call my job plenty of times to see if I was at work, or if I wasn't at work, if I was missing work, or if I was just not doing anything but at work. And
well, were you at work?
Yes, ma'am, I was at work.
So if, listen to me. So if she called you and said, can I speak to Mr. Rivera, please? You would get on the phone. She would say, hi, how's everything, and goodbye. And that's it, because she knew you were there.
Right.
Right? But were there times, Mr. Rivera, when she called your work and you weren't there?
Whenever I left.
Were there times, Mr. Rivera, when she called your job and you weren't there?
No, ma'am, there was not.
So you were always there?
Yes, ma'am.
And what kind of work were you doing at that time?
At that time, I was waitering.
So she would call you, somebody would call you to the phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? She would say hello?
Yes, ma'am.
And you would say hello?
Yes, ma'am.
And what would she say to you?
She would just making sure that I was at work.
Well, that's not what she said. She said, I'm not making sure that you're at work, because that's not what women do when they call to see if their husbands or their fiancés are where they're supposed to be. Shh. They usually just say, hi, thinking about you, bye. He's where he's supposed to be. That's what usually happens. That's not harassment. Harassment is if she comes down to your place of business and she throws a scene because you're not there, she waits for you.
She did do that.
You want to tell me about when she threw a scene,
She,
sir?
I got off of work one morning. I went home and I found my bags all packed up, and I left the house. That same night, I
Well,
was
was
at
that a
work.
surprise to you, Mr. Rivera?
Was that a what?
Was that a surprise
A surprise to me? Yes, it came to a shock to me when I came home and all my bags were packed.
You mean you left to go to work the day before or the evening before, and everything was hunky-dory between
Everything
the two?
was fine.
Everything was fine.
I come home the next day, everything is packed up, so I'm thinking she wants me to go. I left that same night.
You mean you didn't ask her why?
No, I didn't ask her why because there was no one home. Like I said, I came home, all my bags were packed. I took it to myself, saying that she wants me to leave, so I left.
Okay.
That same night, she comes into my work with the rest of my clothes in the restaurant in front of my customers, co-workers, and management, and just drops everything in front of everybody. Just.
All right, just because I'm curious, tell me about this little thing from.
Ooh, tell you the real half here. He, I would call his work, and they'd be like, he's not here. I just dropped him off there. Well, he's not here. Well, where is he? He left with so-and-so, which happened to be a female. And I started hearing stories, and I started thinking. I'd call his work, and I'd speak with a manager which I was somewhat friendly with, and he'd be like, he left 2 hours ago.
Okay, so when'd you pack his bag?
It got to the point that I said he started smoking. There was an incident when he smoked marijuana at my parents' house. My parents are totally against it. My parents opened up the household to both of us. So I hit the roof. And then between that and him not being at work, me thinking he's cheating on me for obvious reasons, I turned around, and that was my only way to let him know I was serious.
Go ahead.
Well, I had no way to reach him for about a week or two, and I said, you still have belongings here, you need to get them out. And the only contact place I had was his work. So it was the end of shift, it was about 15 minutes before he got out of work, and I turned around, I said, you don't want to call me back, and I have no way of contacting you. I had all his items packed up, I didn't just throw them. I went into the lobby, and I said, here's your stuff. And he came at me with a fit, came at me out the door. I thought he was going to hit me. My mom was there in the car because she had driven me. She didn't know what was going to happen. I got in the car and I left.
All right. Since you left in April, have you been paying any child support for your daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
You pay that through the court?
Yes, ma'am.
How much do you pay?
$87.50 a week.
Okay. Total, $747. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Is that
In the matter of Jones versus Callahan, parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Gentlemen, have seats.
All right, this case is a little complicated, so let me go through the facts as I understand them. This is your brother?
Yes, ma'am.
For some reason which is unimportant at this moment, you went to jail.
Yes, ma'am.
And you had a car.
Yes.
The car was towed when
Yes,
you
ma'am.
were incarcerated. According to the complaint, your sister, who had formerly dated the defendant, asked the defendant if he would pay the towing charges on the car and the impound fees on the car, and that when your brother got out of jail, he would repay him and he would give him the car back.
Yes.
Your brother got out of jail, and the defendant, stop playing with your papers, pay attention, because maybe I'm getting something wrong. Your brother got out of jail, and the defendant, according to you, refuses to return the car.
Yes, ma'am. He refused to return any phone calls.
The defendant says that he did return the car, and he is counterclaiming. He says that you, Mr. Jones, stole a gun that belonged to him, and that you, Miss Jones, have a large screen television set that belongs to him in your home. Is that right?
That is correct.
And you want to be reimbursed for the towing fees that you paid for his car, right?
Correct.
Okay. Do you understand that?
No, but I'm waiting to see it unfold.
Okay. Well, I tried to simplify it. It was really very... Okay. When did you go to jail, sir?
November 1st of 2001.
How long were you there?
I was there for 4 months.
Okay. And you called the defendant. Were you still dating at the time?
Yes, we were.
What did you say to him?
I asked him if he would get the car out of impound for me because I could not afford it, and that we would pay it back as soon as my brother was released from jail.
And what did he say?
He said fine.
How much were the impound fees?
$538.
Now you tell me your version of the conversation that you had with her about getting the car out of impound.
She explained to me that while her brother was in jail, that I'd be able to get the car out of impound in replace of the stolen gun.
No. Look at me. Look right here. She called you and said what?
She called me and told me there's a note here saying her brother will give you the car because of the stolen gun. So I said, well, okay, I'll accept that
I don't
offer.
agree with that.
Just a second. Who has this note? Do you have the note?
Actually, she has the note.
You have the note?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me see it, please.
This is the contract we had on the car. He refused to sign it because he
Just a
said
second, just a second. Okay. Well, nobody signed this, and this doesn't say anything about a gun. What about this gun?
There was a gun that he claims was stolen out of my house. I have 2 minor children, this being one of them. My daughter is 2 years old. I had asked him numerous times not to bring a gun into my house.
Yes.
We went to visit my friend in the hospital, and when we came back, he told me that his gun was stolen out of my house, and I didn't even know it was still in there. I had told him over and over again not to leave a gun in my house with my minor children. So I don't really know what happened to the gun.
You said you saw a note where Mr. Jones here confessed to having stolen your gun?
Yeah, actually, it was in one of his letters that he sent while he was in jail.
Well, where is the letter?
Actually, she has it.
You have a letter?
I don't have any with me. I have just...
Did you get a letter from your brother with regard to a stolen
My brother
gun?
sent me a letter saying if it was possible for me to please get out his car out of impound fees. He didn't care what I had to do it, to just get it out. I told him then I would ask Jimmy to get the car out of impound for me, and that when Matt got released from jail that he would then pay for the car because I didn't want anything to do
I
with it.
have that information. I'm asking you about a note with regard to his confessing that he stole a gun.
No, ma'am.
Did you take his gun?
No, I didn't. I have talked to numerous detectives as well in this case, and they acquitted me of the charges, and they don't feel that I've taken it, so.
Taken it.
Taken it, sorry.
Detectives don't acquit you. They just have to have evidence in order to
They drop
arrest
the case.
They dropped the
In any
case.
event, there's no proof that he took the gun.
Exactly.
Sounds logical to me, sir, very logical to me, that your girlfriend would call and ask you to do this for her and that you would return the car. But your defense is that you returned the car. Tell me about that.
Actually, on January 8th, she gave me a call, threatened me, saying that if I don't return the car within a couple days, that her and her brother would come looking after me. That weekend on the 12th.
Don't speak unless I'm looking at you.
That weekend on the 12th, I told one of my friends to help escort me to drop off this VW Jetta to Dawn Marie's residence. So eventually, he drove his Toyota, and I drove the Jetta to her house. We dropped off the keys in the mailbox, which is in front of her doorway. And for the reason I did not make contact with her, she has filed a stalking charge on me prior to these occasions.
Okay. Did you report the car stolen?
No, they told us we had to take it to small claims court and get it back.
He doesn't have it.
But he did have it, and he had it at the time, and he had never dropped it off to my house,
How do you
ever.
know that?
Because if I'm not home, somebody else is there.
I don't know whether somebody else is there or not. He doesn't have the car. And he certainly can't use the car because he doesn't have any proof of ownership. He can't have it insured. So I suggest you call and report the car stolen because he doesn't have it. Do you understand?
Yes.
Good. Perfect. Now, you can have the car back, but you still owe him some money because he got the car out of impound. You promised to pay him back. Why didn't you pay him back?
We've made a number of chances to try and contact him. In the stalking order that he was suggesting, I went with her to the court. We ended up dropping the stalking order, saying we just want the car back, then we can all go our own separate ways. He refused to contact us. He refused to call us. He says that he's not doing the deal no more. We have the money, and we've offered to pay him several times.
Well, he certainly can't sell the car without a certificate of title, which leads me to believe that unless he's just merely being vindictive and dumped it in a lake or something, which I have no proof of, that it has absolutely no value to him whatsoever.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Dawn Jones says ex-boyfriend James Callahan refuses to return her brother's car. Dawn says when her brother Matthew was arrested, James got the car out of impound and never gave it back.
Okay. Now tell me about this big screen TV.
All right, I have the receipt here. On 10/8/01, I went down to Circuit City with her son to purchase a TV. For the reason is our TV that she had at the time was not reasonable. So we eventually purchased a 27-inch flat screen Panasonic TV. I do have other things in her house, and I could not receive that. I couldn't bring
Just
that.
a minute. We're not there yet. The TV that she had was not a good one, so you went with her son and bought a TV and brought it to her house.
Correct.
What makes you think this is your TV?
I actually purchased it.
I don't care if you purchased it. If you purchased it and made a gift to her, then it's not yours. I don't care if you purchased it. All right, let me hear your version of the TV.
Thank you, okay. He was liking to flash money around everywhere he went. He was flashing money in my face. He also was giving me...
TV.
Several gifts, okay? He gave me the TV. He put it in my name. I have the receipt.
I want you to tell me.
He left the house one day. He came back with this huge TV, and I said, what are you doing? I cannot pay you for this TV. He said, don't worry, Marie, it's a gift. You can have it. I'm not going to take it from you or your kids. Here's my son, who was with him when he went to the shopping.
Let me see the receipt.
Those are receipts for everything he's countersuing me for.
No, I'm not interested in everything. I'm just interested in the TV.
All right.
Sold to Dawn Jones.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, when you give a gift, you don't take it back, sir. The relationship didn't work out. It doesn't mean you get the TV back. What you do get back is the $538 that you laid out for the towing fees for the VW. That's what you get back. Period. You go to the police and take care of your car.
Will do.
Good. Have I resolved that? Did you understand it?
I understood it perfectly.
Perfect, thank you. Goodbye, have a happy life.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I don't know what his problem is, but he is severely mental.
There are certain times where if you're really nice, you let your guard down, people will, intend to take advantage of that.
He broke into my house and woke me up while I was sleeping, doing nasty things.
She's in distress right now, and she's trying to, make me look bad.
He's psycho. He's psycho.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Bullock versus Green. Step forward, please.
25-year-old student Corus Bullock is suing former friend, 25-year-old student Ernest Green, for breaking his windshield in a drunken fit.
Mr. Bullock, the defendant is or was a friend or acquaintance of yours, and according to your complaint, you gave him a ride home from someplace when he was drunk. He went crazy in your car and did damage to the windshield of your car. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so tell me when this happened.
On January 19th, it was a Monday, it was, because of the Martin Luther King event that was going on in St. Pete, Florida.
Okay, tell me how it came to be that he was in your car.
It came to be because I gave Mr. Green a call that evening asking him what he was doing for that day, because I had just met Mr. Green probably about a week before that. And he was like, give me a call sometime and, we'll hang out or whatever. So I gave him a call and I asked him, what he was doing for that day, and he was telling me about the event that was going on in St. Pete. So I asked him, would he like to go? And he was like, yes, we can go down there.
Okay, and was he drinking at the time?
At the time that I picked him up, no, he wasn't.
Well, when did he start to drink?
He started to drink on our way to the event because...
in the car?
Yes, ma'am.
And according to you, he was drunk at the time he did this damage to your car.
I wasn't actually drunk. I had drunk some drinks, but I was not drunk, Your Honor.
I'm going to get to you in a minute. Go ahead.
Well, he actually hadn't started drinking until we was on our way to the event. He asked me to stop at the liquor store on our way to the event. And he, he offered, me if I wanted anything I drink. I was like, no, I'm fine, So I was like, we'll stop and get you something. So as we stopped and got him something on our way to the trip, he had started drinking or whatever.
What was he drinking?
I can't recall the actual name of the beverages.
I was drinking cognac.
Cognac?
Cognac.
What time in the morning was this?
It was not in the morning.
What time was it?
It was around 7 o'clock.
In the evening?
In the evening.
And what kind of an event were you going to?
We went to a parade. Also,
just a second. You were going to celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday?
Oh, yeah, I was not drunk. I mean, I'd had some drinks.
Pay attention to my question. You were going to celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday, and you decided that the appropriate tribute to Martin Luther King was to drink cognac.
Yeah, actually,
just pay attention to my question. The appropriate tribute to this leader was to drink cognac on your way to the parade.
No, actually, that wasn't it. Actually, Mr. Bullock had a couple drinks earlier, too.
I'm talking about you.
Hold on, Your Honor. That's a false statement. I didn't have anything to drink.
Just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm talking to him. Now I'm not talking to you anymore. Let's get to the windshield, please.
Yes, ma'am. Earlier that day, I got a call from one of my other friends who was telling me that he was throwing like a little private party at an after-hour event. So after we left the Martin Luther King event on our way back, I told Mr. Green about the event. He asked me, could he come? And at the time, I knew he had been drinking or whatever, and I was like, well, we'll take you home first, and then I'll come back and get you. And then he made a statement that he wasn't ready to go home because he knew if he went home, his girlfriend would not let him back out.
Excuse me, Your Honor, that was not true.
So when I took him there or whatever, I said, well,
you took him to the party.
Right.
It wasn't an event. It was a party, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, so let's not say event. We went to a party, and you took him to the party. Did he continue to drink at the party?
Yes, ma'am, he did.
We haven't gotten to the windshield yet. When are we going to get to the windshield? I'm losing
we're getting
patience.
to the windshield right now, ma'am.
Good.
All right. Well, we were at the party. That's when he started getting a little belligerent, and one of the actual bouncers saw that his attitude was rude towards some of the females in the club, that he was grabbing on them and harassing the women. And he said, "You're all going to have to take him home." And I said, "That's not a problem." I said, "I'll take him home." On our way going down the interstate, Mr. Green's attitude had really changed. I mean, he had started getting very rude, loud. He had started, saying some obscene things.
Where was he sitting?
He was sitting in the passenger seat.
Excuse me, Your Honor, that's not my character.
Just a second.
It's not of my character.
Don't interrupt. All right, so he's rude, he's belligerent, he's using bad language. Get to the windshield.
So we were approximately about a block from his home, and he had just started really getting loud, and before I knew it, he had started swinging at the windshield like this, going like this, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And before I knew it, I looked up, and my windshield was cracked, and we was about a block from his home.
And he cracked the windshield with his what?
With his fist.
Do you have a picture?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
I'd like to see it, please.
Judge, if I broke the windshield, cracked the windshield, I'm pretty sure.
Am I looking in your direction, Mr. Green?
Okay, sure.
What time was this that you took him home?
It was about 12:30, almost going on 1, about 1:45.
And you picked him up at what time?
I picked him up about 6 o'clock, 6:30.
What time did you get to the liquor store?
We made it to the liquor store about 6:45.
So he started to drink cognac at 6:45?
Yes, ma'am.
And it would be fair to say that he drank from 6:45 until about 12:30, 1:45?
Yes, ma'am.
No, it wasn't, Your Honor.
Oh, okay.
I,
All right.
when
Now,
I-
Mr. Green,
Yes, ma'am.
listen to me very carefully,
Yes,
sir.
I can.
You remember going home in the car with Mr. Bullock?
Of course I do.
Good.
I
Tell
was
me what
no,
happened.
no kind of way was I out of sync. Yes, I had some drinks, but that's no kind of way to say that someone's drunk.
Let me ask you this. You're at the club, and everybody is having a good time at the club?
We all had a good time at the club.
Great.
So, but no kind of way did I act out of character.
Okay. Did you ask Mr. Bullock to take you home at about 12:30 or 1:45?
Yes, I did ask him to take me home.
Tell me what you said to him when you asked him to take you home.
Well, I felt myself getting a little bit out of sync.
What does that mean, out of sync?
Out of sync means when you had one too many drinks, then you're just ready to go home.
Okay, so you
But
you felt
I
as
never
if you
passed
had
up
too
nothing.
much to drink.
Yeah, exactly.
So you
I have
passed-
that kind of judgment. So, I mean, no, that's how I know no kind of way could I have broken his windshield.
Shh, I didn't ask windshield yet. I'm not there, Mr. Green. So it's your testimony that you're at the club, and you were drinking at the club,
Of course I drank.
and that you felt as if you were a little out of sync.
Exactly.
So you said, would you please drive me home?
Exactly.
Because you were being responsible.
Exactly.
Is that right, Mr. Bullock?
No, ma'am, that statement is false.
Of course, it's false. Are you suggesting to me, Mr. Green, that the proprietor of this club didn't ask that you leave?
I never had anyone come up to me saying, I want you to leave.
You weren't behaving in any way that was irregular, a little bit high or a little bit inebriated at the club.
Well, a little bit intoxicated, of course.
A little
That's the
bit
reason why I was ready to go home, of course. But I don't
So you
act
were
out of
acting
character.
a little bit drunk.
No, I'm not drunk, of course. When you're drunk, you're like falling down or something on the floor. I was not drunk.
Not everybody falls down on the floor, sir. Some people are drunk and they continue to stand up.
I know
See, what
I'm
I
drunk.
find unusual, Mr. Green, is if you're at the club and you're drinking and you're having a good time and you're really not drunk and you're dancing and everybody else is staying at the club, it takes a person of very strong character to say, I've had a little too much to drink. Would you please drive me home?
You don't believe that can happen?
It can happen.
Okay.
Unless there's a broken windshield. Go ahead.
I don't exactly know how the windshield was broken. I think that Mr. Bullock may have went out somewhere else after he dropped me off and something happened to his car and he's trying
And he's
to
just
pin this on
blaming,
me.
and he's just blaming it
I
on you.
believe that might have been what happened, but I don't. I break a windshield. What reason would I have if someone I just met to break their windshield? I mean,
Especially someone who has been very nice to you. Gave you
Exactly.
a call, said, come on, let's go spend the day. We'll go
Exactly.
down to the parade, then you can come to a party with me afterwards, right?
That is correct.
So you think that someone who acted like a person who wanted to be your friend would drop you off and then something would happen to his windshield and then he would say to himself, I'm going to blame Mr. Green for this.
What other reason would I have to come on this show and prove myself if I knew I was guilty?
It's possible, Mr. Green, that you don't remember breaking his windshield, that you were so drunk you don't remember.
Well, I just explained to you that I wasn't drunk.
Of course you were drunk. You had been drinking for over 5 hours.
No, I wasn't. I just said I was
Cognac, not a little beer.
I was not drinking over 5 hours now.
Sure you were.
You be in a hospital, you drink for over 5. You be in like intox or something.
Well, that's what we're saying, Mr. Green, because after the first 5 or 6, you don't remember. You just want that buzz to continue. What kind of damage was done to your car, Mr. Bullock?
Besides the windshield, ma'am, that was it.
Okay, and how much did it cost you to have it fixed?
The list price was $325.
I asked you
but
how much it cost you to have it fixed. Don't
I
play
only
with me.
paid $144.45.
All right. Mr. Green, just add this $144.25 to the cost of the bottle of cognac. Judgment for the plaintiff, that's all. Who's speaking?
I am.
What is your last name, sir?
Williams.
Mr. Williams, according to your complaint, you loaned this defendant, actually both of them, but it was for his use, $600 because he was facing a period of 15 days in jail,
Yes, we did.
and he never paid you back the money.
That's right.
According to you, this defendant, Gilkerson,
Yes.
was also party to that loan.
Yes.
Because it was she who you knew.
That's right.
Okay. How do you know each other?
Me and her mother were best friends since we were 4 years old.
So she's the child of a good friend of yours?
Correct.
Who got the call about this money?
Actually, me and Sandra had discussed it, loaning money, and then...
Well, tell me about the discussion. Where did it take place? When did it take place?
Go ahead.
Debbie approached me. Sandra approached her, wanting to borrow $600.
No. I want to hear from her when Sandra approached you.
Okay, Sandra come to me in January and asked me if she could borrow some money to help to get Brian out of some trouble he was in.
Did she tell you what kind of trouble?
Yes.
What did she say?
She said that he just had tickets and fines and that needed the money so he didn't go to jail, and I didn't want him to go to jail.
You didn't want him, or she didn't want him to go?
She didn't want him to, but I didn't want him for her.
So it was just fines?
Correct.
How much money did she say he needed?
He needed $600.
What did you tell her?
I told her that I had to talk to Tom and that we would get back with her. And then we discussed it, and I wanted to make sure that it wasn't Sandra that had to pay all the money back. I wanted Brian to be a part of it because I didn't want Sandra liable for him.
Did you ever speak to him?
I did not speak to Brian, no. Tom did.
Okay. Now it's your game.
Debbie come and told me that Sandra wanted to borrow this money, but she had reservations about Brian, and she wanted me to talk to Brian because she didn't want Sandra at that point to get stuck with this whole thing. So I went and I talked to Brian one-on-one.
You went to his house?
Yes, we were at his house where he lives with Sandra, her house. We were on his porch, and I told him, "You guys want to borrow this money, and you had Sandra come ask for it. It's for you. It's your debt also. I don't care if you guys break up. I don't care if you move away. I don't care what happens. It's your debt too."
And what did he say?
He said he was cool with that, and he just needed to pay these fines.
Is that what he said? He's cool with that?
No, I said I understood.
Yes.
Oh, good. You cool with that? And you said you understood that.
Yeah, I agreed.
You know what that's like? Did you ever, do a lineup where you have the victim looking at the group of people, and the detective says, "Do you recognize anybody as the person who robbed you?" And the robber raises his hand. "It was me." I'm glad we've resolved that. You understood this was your debt. All right? Who did you give the $600 to?
Both of them at the same time.
A check or cash?
Cash.
Cash. Okay. Now you don't have to say anything else for a while. Go.
It wasn't $600. I did have some traffic fines that were going to be due. I asked Sandra because she was my girlfriend. I didn't have a job at the time. I had just lost it. It wasn't, I didn't know Sandra.
Do you see how quiet he was? Now you're not allowed to speak.
All right.
Okay, good.
I didn't know Sandra was going to ask these guys, but I had asked her if there was anything she could do to help me. It was only $240 that they gave us because my fines were only $300. That's all they equaled up to. But all she was able to give us was $240. We made one payment. It was not said to be paid at the beginning of the month. It was just every month they wanted $30. And yes, that was understood. She was on welfare at the time, and that's how she was going to help me pay them back. Until I found a job, she was going to give them $30 a month until it was paid off, or I found a job and was able to contribute to the loan.
So you mean I, as a taxpayer who pays tax... Would you listen to me carefully, sir?
Yes.
Let me make this easier for you so that I can keep him interested. Bird, who is a taxpayer, who works and pays his taxes, part of which go to support people who cannot or will not support themselves through welfare. Bird was going to pay for your fines.
That's not the way it...
Well, that's what it is. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Do you understand that, Officer Bird?
It works that way.
She's getting welfare because you have children, I assume.
I have a son.
You have a child. Who's the father of that child? Him?
No.
Somebody else. So because you are a single parent and have a child, you get welfare. You were going to take $30 from your small welfare benefits and pay back his debt.
It was mine also, ma'am.
I don't care whose debt it was. How can you agree to pay back a debt for somebody when all you get is mere existence money for you and your child? How could you afford $30 a month? They must pay you an awful lot for welfare.
No, they don't.
But it was able to be afforded until I was able to find a job, and then she wouldn't have been paying it no more because it was my fines to be paid.
Just a second. Now, I don't want you to say anything else. Miss Gilkerson, when did Mr. Grutel first tell you that he needed money to pay these fines?
Sometime in the beginning of January.
Where were you when he told you?
At my house.
And who lives at your house?
Me and my son.
Who else?
We were staying up the street at a friend's house.
At a friend's house?
Yes.
Which friend?
My friend Heather.
And where was he staying?
He was staying at his mother's.
Sure he was.
That's not,
Sure.
all of that's a lie.
Of course. Sure he was staying at his
I was staying at my mother's house. Like I said, it wasn't going to be with her.
Are you telling me that you never stayed with Miss Gilkerson?
Yeah, I'm not going to say...
stayed the night.
Yes, ma'am. I have spent the night, but I didn't live there.
Of course you have. And you just pick the nights that you stay there, and at the other times you stay with your mom, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what kind of fines were these? What were they for,
Just
sir?
traffic. When I
Traffic.
first got my license, you know, I didn't have my insurance and everything, so that made it a bunch more problems for me.
Well, what does that mean, you didn't have your insurance?
I wasn't responsible.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Thomas Williams and his girlfriend Debbie Kirby say former friends Brian Grutel and girlfriend Sandra Gilkerson owe for a loan to keep Brian out of jail.
Were all the fines for not having insurance?
No.
What were they for?
Driving without a license as well.
Okay, so not only didn't you have insurance, but you didn't have a license.
Yes, ma'am.
How many tickets did you have in total?
Probably 3.
So this is my question to you. Judge gave you so much time to get the money together?
And to produce a valid driver's license.
When was that?
I'll say January 15th. I'm not for sure at this time.
Okay. Now, when you paid the fines, you got a receipt.
Yes, I didn't bring it. I'm sorry.
Now, I mean, did you think that I was stupid?
No, ma'am.
You pay the fines, and then you get a receipt
Right.
that you bring back to the court, and then the matter is dismissed, right?
Yes.
Where's the receipt?
I was only able to pay one fine because they didn't give me enough money to pay all of it.
That's fine. Where's the
I didn't
receipt for
bring
the
it.
one
I couldn't
fine?
find it. It was a
Now,
last
are you
minute.
still living in the same location
Yes.
that you were living before?
Yes.
And is the court in the same city where you live?
Yes.
Yes. So what you do is you take a ride down or walk
Oh, I can get
down.
a copy.
No, you do that before you come to court.
I'm sorry.
Me too. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $600. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I love Sandra like she was my daughter, and this is just killing me.
I couldn't say the right words for her to understand my side of the story.
They're all living on welfare, got it taken, they're all doing drugs.
I got papers proving they're both liars.
They bought a quarter pound of weed and tried to flip it over and messed it up just like they do everything else.
The reason he's saying that is because he stole a quarter pound of weed from my sister's ex-boyfriend and got caught and told everybody charge it to the game.
They smoked it instead of sold it.
He lives off her disability and welfare, and they're a bunch of frauds.
He was fired from his job because he was buying alcohol for minors at McDonald's where he was working at.
He lied.
It's crazy, you know, we're just glad we got our money.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Hamilton versus Cleveland. Step forward, please.
22-year-old child care provider Hillary Hamilton is suing her ex-boyfriend, 19-year-old construction worker Cameron Kleeman, for an unpaid truck loan and for unpaid rent. Cameron says he owes Hillary nothing.
Ms. Hamilton, you claim a loan to Mr. Kleeman.
Yes, ma'am.
In the amount of $1,900.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. What was your relationship to him?
I was his girlfriend.
What did you loan him the money for?
I loaned him the money for a truck.
Tell me about how it came to be that he needed money for a truck and he asked you for a loan.
He didn't have a job, and he asked me.
What did he say?
He asked me if he could have some money to buy a truck so that he can get a job.
Were you living together at the time?
We were getting ready to live together. I'm pregnant with his child.
Where did you get the money from?
My income tax.
Your income tax refund?
Mm-hmm.
So when did you give him the money?
I wrote a check out to the Ford company where we got the truck, and
how much was the check for?
$1,500.
Okay. And you acknowledge that she gave you $1,500. Is that right, sir, towards
Yes,
the down
ma'am.
payment of the truck?
Yes, ma'am, she did.
Okay. Now, you tell me your version, sir, of how and why you got this $1,500.
The conversation between me and her of
Yes.
it being a loan never arose. She never said it was a loan. She,
Well, what'd you think it was?
Well, I mean, we were together at the time and everything else, you know. I mean, she put the money down for our apartment to move in together. She put the $1,500 down for the loan on the truck. She co-signed for me because I didn't have good enough credit to be able to facilitate a loan. And so, I mean, it never became a loan until she moved out of the apartment we were living in, and she came to me and asked me what I was going to do about owing her the money. And my reply to her was, I don't owe you any money. I was working. I was paying all my bills and stuff that I had incurred myself.
But you couldn't work anymore if you didn't have a truck that was working.
Well, that's true. My truck
Just
was
a
in the
second,
process.
so you wouldn't have been able to work.
True.
Mr. Kleeman, I want you to put aside the issue of a contract with her for a moment. There came a time when you no longer were living together. You moved into an apartment, which is the other part of your claim, that you laid out his half of the rent, $400.
Yes, ma'am.
What caused you to separate?
He was dating another girl while I was living there with him.
That's not true.
Just a second. And how long had you actually lived together in this apartment?
11 days.
Who was supposed to make payments on the truck?
She provided the $1,500 down. I was supposed to make, I had a promissory note signed to pay $500 within 2 weeks of the time of the loan was signed and everything. And I'd talked to Victor, the guy at Marshall Mize Ford there in Chattanooga, and told him that I wasn't going to be able to make it because I had to go with my father out of town.
So what happened?
I gave them $250 in a money order, and then I paid them, it was $278 with everything, taxes and all.
Okay, so you had the truck for about 2 weeks before
Yes,
you and the plaintiff separated.
Yes, ma'am.
What happened to the truck?
About a week and a half after she had moved out, that one of my friends had wrecked the truck.
What was one of your friends doing driving the truck?
And taking one of my other friends to work because I was in no shape to drive.
Why?
I had pneumonia. I couldn't even get out of the bed.
Did you have insurance on this truck?
I had liability, and that was it.
So somebody wrecked the truck.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, who's responsible for all the payments on the truck?
I was, me and Miss Hamilton.
Did you pay for it?
Yes, ma'am. I made every payment up until the week it got repossessed.
What do you mean it got repossessed? I thought it was wrecked.
It was wrecked, yes, ma'am.
And was it still drivable?
Yes, ma'am.
So what you're saying to me, sir, is by the time they repossessed the truck, it had already been damaged by a buddy of yours, and the total purchase price of the truck was what?
I believe it was $9,000.
You owe to the credit company a whole bunch of money.
No, ma'am. Supposedly, Miss Hamilton here, from what she's told my mother, she's found somebody to purchase the vehicle. They're going to get it fixed and everything else, and they've taken over the loan on the vehicle.
Is that right?
The truck's still at Marshall Mize Ford. It's still sitting there. But I do have the paperwork on the truck where nothing's been paid on it except for what I've paid.
How much have you paid?
$1,500.
Only the $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't make any monthly payments on
Yes,
it?
ma'am. I made the $500 promise.
I'm not talking about the $500. That was the down payment. When did your friend have an accident in the truck?
Okay, she moved out, I believe that was Friday. It happened the following Sunday.
Okay. And weren't you supposed to make a payment in March?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Did you make a payment in March?
I didn't make the first weekly payment. It was set up on a weekly plan.
Why didn't you make the payment?
Because I had totally forgotten about it, because I had made the $250 payment, and then I turned around and made another $278 payment, and I'd totally forgotten about it. Well, the guy at Marshall Mize
All right,
called.
so let's figure out what you did. Let me tell you all the problems that you had. First of all, you're supposed to come up with the other money after she put down the money, and you had to go out of town with your father.
Right.
Then you let somebody else drive the truck who had an accident.
Yeah.
Then you didn't make the next payment that you were supposed to make on the truck in March because you totally forgot about it.
Yes.
You're a pretty irresponsible person.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is I forgot about the weekly payment. It was set up on a weekly payment plan.
You forgot?
Yeah, I forgot. And the man from Marshall Mize called me.
Don't tell me the man from Marshall Mize for them. Not interested. You owe $1,500. Now, let's hear about this rent business, Miss Hamilton.
I have a lease saying what I paid on the apartment, which was $614 plus $10 deposit for the keys. And he has never taken me off the lease when he lived there. I moved out before the lease even started.
Yeah, so you signed the lease. What do you
But
want?
I wasn't living there.
I don't care. You signed the lease. You're supposed to use your brain and think. How long did you live in that apartment, Mr. Kleeman?
I lived in there until the very end of February.
How much rent did you pay?
I paid $400.
Who did you pay to?
Bender Realty, because I had to have the rent for the March, be able to move out, and they were going to keep the $300 security deposit.
Well, was that her $300 security deposit?
That's out of the money that she put down off the...
Did you pay any rent for March?
No, I didn't live there.
Well, I know, neither did he. He says he paid rent for March.
That's not what they've told me.
I don't believe him either. Did you pay any rent for February, sir?
No, ma'am, I didn't. February was included in the $614.50.
Okay, did you pay any part of that?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Why not?
Because she had said that she would be more than willing to put up the money so that we can move out, so that she can move out. Because she was wanting to move out from her parents' house. I was not in a situation to really argue or anything.
I thought you were working, sir. You kept telling
Yes,
me I was
ma'am, I was
working.
working.
What kind of work were you doing? You didn't have money for a
Construction work.
car. You didn't have money for rent. You didn't have money for security.
I was working
What kind of work were you
construction.
doing?
Working construction.
Well, what were you doing with the money?
I only got paid every 2 weeks, and there was
What
bills
were you
and
doing
stuff.
with the money that
Paying
you were
other-
earning from construction?
Paying other bills and stuff that I had.
What other
acquired.
bills?
I had a truck payment and insurance on my 95 Dodge Dakota. I have personal debts and stuff to my parents.
Grow up. I mean, is she a person who's independently wealthy?
No, ma'am.
She got a tax return. Yeah. Let me explain something to you. You're supposed to be the hunter.
Yes, ma'am.
You're supposed to provide the shelter, gather the food.
Yes, ma'am.
You're not supposed to be the schnurrer. Do you know what a schnurrer is?
No, ma'am, I don't.
I know you don't. A schnurrer is the Yiddish word for taker. Somebody your size isn't supposed to be a taker. They're supposed to be responsible. Responsible for their own transportation, responsible for their own housing. She wasn't even asking you to take care of her. She was just asking you to take care of yourself. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,807. That's all.
That's case number 130 on the calendar in the matter of Smith versus Grody. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Ms. Smith, according to what I've read in your complaint, you and Mr. Grody were dating. You went to a Christmas party with him using your car. He drove home from the Christmas party. There was an accident, and he totaled your car. You were a passenger in the car. You want $5,000 so that you can buy a new car, and Mr. Grody says that it was, in fact, an accident. There was snow and ice on the road, and you should have had better insurance if the car was so valuable. That's your defense, right? Okay. Let's see. This Christmas party was on what date?
December 4th of 2004.
And how far from your home was the Christmas party?
Well, from my home, it was about an hour and a half. From where John lives, it was about 40 minutes.
And I see from your complaint that it was originally your intention to sleep over.
Yes.
And you had hotel reservations.
I do not know if there was hotel reservations. I did call to get a receipt for the hotel reservations. They said that
you made arrangements to stay over.
I did not. John said that he was going to make all the arrangements.
Okay. And that was because?
It was his Christmas party.
And you were both going to be drinking?
Yes.
So that was a very wise thing, to make arrangements to stay over.
Okay, we didn't make arrangements before we got there. Our whole thing was actually that we were going home that night. When we got there was when everybody said, oh, we're all staying here, so do you want to stay? And originally she said she didn't want to stay.
And what
said
about
we
you?
didn't have the money to stay.
Your Honor.
Just a second, he's talking. Go ahead.
So when we were there, and I said, all right, well then, I wanted to stay there. She said we didn't have the money to stay there, so the plan was to drive home after that.
Who didn't have the money?
Both of us, either of us.
So you didn't have the money either?
Well, I offered to pay. I mean, I had a credit card on me. I could have paid, but then she said she didn't want me to. So the plan was to go home.
Mr. Grody, were you drinking?
Yes, I was.
Was she drinking?
Yeah, she was.
Then you find the money to stay over.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
Now, what time did you leave the party?
I had to be around 12:30.
And what time had you arrived at the party?
That's a good question. I have no idea.
I believe it was around 8 o'clock.
What kind of alcohol were you consuming that day, Miss Smith?
I had some wine with dinner, and then in the bar area, I was drinking Captain and Diet Coke.
And what were you drinking, Mr. Grody?
Corbel and Diet Coke.
Corbel and Diet Coke. Is that a mix?
It is for me.
What, really? I mean, do you mix those two together, or you drink the Coke as a chaser?
No, I mix them together.
You mix them together?
Yep. I'm a brandy boy, sorry.
I guess it ain't a mimosa. I guess it's a Melissa.
Melissa. That's cute. It's cute. I wouldn't record it anywhere, but it's cute. How many of these bizarre drinks did you have that evening?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay. So you know that you were in no position to be driving home.
Before we left, I did stop drinking a while before we actually did leave.
How old are you, sir?
23.
How many hours into the drive home did you have this accident?
About 40 minutes. We were about a mile away from my house.
Is there a police report?
Yes, I have an
I'd like to
accident
see
report.
You're driving on a suspended license?
No.
Did you have a license?
Yes, I did.
It says that you were cited for driving too fast for the conditions, failure to notify police of an accident,
Correct.
and operating after a suspension.
Right. Actually, everything didn't go through. I actually paid the ticket that I had it suspended for before that, but it didn't go through in that township.
What was your license suspended for?
For not paying a ticket or not appearing in court for a speeding ticket.
Did you get a ticket for driving too fast for the conditions?
Yes, I did.
Okay. According to your complaint, Ms. Smith, he was angry that evening when you left.
Yes.
Is that right? Tell me about it.
Well, we were all just, socializing, and I went up to the bar to get a drink. And while I was waiting for my drink, a guy just randomly struck up a conversation with me. And we were just chatting while I was waiting. And apparently, John here didn't like that. And he came up and he had made a remark to the individual that was talking to me. I couldn't understand what he was saying, but I could definitely, he was aggressive in his body language towards this guy. So I really didn't want to, push the issue. I just stayed where I was, thought that he would just, have like 5 minutes of cool down time and I would stay there. But then immediately he came back up to me and he just said, "We're leaving now." And
what time was that?
I believe it was around 12:15.
Okay, and did you leave?
Yes.
And you let him drive?
Well, I didn't, yes. Physically, I let him drive because I knew I could not physically stop him from driving. He had possession of my keys because I allowed him to drive us to the party. And so he was angry. I was very scared. He's much larger than I am.
Shouldn't have gotten into the car.
I understand. I shouldn't have gotten into the car.
The car's just steel, replaceable.
Understandable. I was clearly not thinking about the best thing. Yes, and also, even if it hadn't been drinking, I believe due to the scare factor, I just didn't want him to, of course, damage my property that I worked very hard. And I know that's a very irrational thought. My body is much more precious than a chunk of metal, like you said.
You're right. So what happened on the way home?
He just kept saying that, why were you talking to this guy? This was my party. You're my girlfriend. Being very possessive, being very jealous.
And some of the booze talking, too.
Possibly, yeah.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I freaked out and I said, "John, you need to slow down. You need to slow down. It's dark. We're on country roads and you've been drinking." But it was too late. And then the next thing I remember, he was saying, "Get out of the car now. Get out of the car now."
And later today.
Did you believe that the friendship would rekindle into a relationship?
No.
Mr. Marquez, don't insult my intelligence.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Audrey Smith says ex-boyfriend John Grody crashed her VW Jetta while driving drunk. Audrey also says John was irate when he got behind the wheel.
Keep going.
And so he was speeding because he was getting agitated. And I looked at the speedometer, and it was at 80 miles per hour. And I freaked out, and I said, "John, you need to slow down. You need to slow down. It's dark. We're on country roads, and you've been drinking." But it was too late. Then next thing I remember was him saying, "Oh." And then I blacked out momentarily. And then the next thing I remember, he was saying, "Get out of the car now. Get out of the car now." And I was very disoriented. And so he pulled me out through the driver's side door. And...
Okay.
I was going 85 about 10 miles before we actually crashed. I slowed down before we actually went around that curve because I go around that curve every day. I know that it's a bad curve and there's accidents there all the time.
What kind of car were you driving?
A 99 Volkswagen Jetta.
The car was totaled?
Yes.
Did you tell her that you were going to get her another car?
We had a car at work. I'm auto mechanic.
That's not my question.
Yes, I told her that I was going to buy her the car that we had at work and fix it for her, and it was more than equivalent to what she had. She said she didn't want that car. And after that, I'm not obligated, and I did not feel obligated to actually buy her a car. I thought it was just a nice gesture for me to do.
It's not a nice gesture, sir. You caused an accident.
Right.
Your lack of judgment, by virtue of the fact that you had been drinking all night, your lack of judgment and getting behind the wheel and being emotionally agitated with her that evening, which you clearly were. There's no question in my mind that that happened.
Right.
The police indicate that you were driving in excess of the speed limit. Your answer that you provided me says that you had this accident because of the road conditions, because it was icy, going in excess of the speed limits, which the police document.
It says too fast for conditions now.
That's absolutely right. Too fast for the conditions. Too fast for the conditions. Too fast for the hour of the evening. It was dark. Too fast for the fact that you had been drinking champagne and Coke a whole night. All of those things put together suggest to me that this was not an accident brought about by virtue of the fact that accidents sometimes happen. You were doing the wrong thing. And because you were doing the wrong thing, she doesn't have a car anymore.
Right.
So, take care of that. You have the Blue Book value on your car?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it, please.
I did give her my car, by the way.
Shouldn't have it anymore, does she?
Yeah.
Yes, I do have, it was signed over to me, but I also have the NADA value of that.
Just a second. Hold it, my dear. You accepted the car from him and you registered it?
Not at first. At first, he gave it to me. He said, you can borrow this car until I buy you the replacement for your totaled vehicle.
Okay.
I said, thank you. I told him, like, well, you know what? I'm going to take the car for now, and then I'm going to sue you for the rest.
Is that what she said to you?
Yep.
What kind of car did you give her?
95 Corsica Chevy.
Are you telling me that you signed the title over to her?
Correct.
And she said to you, I'm going to take this car, but I'm going to sue you for the rest of the money that I think you owe me, and you said, okay, I'm going to sign over the car anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Why in the world would you do that?
Because otherwise, if I took the car back from her, how would she get anywhere?
What do you care?
I don't want to be a jerk. I understand that she didn't have a car because of me, and I didn't want to be a jerk. I wanted her to be able to get around.
You've been driving this car since April?
I've actually been driving it since the accident happened. And the reason why I needed it transferred over into my name is because I found out that he did not carry insurance on it. And I was driving the car, and I need insurance, and in order to carry insurance, it has to be registered in my name. So that's why I had to do that. Otherwise, again, I would be left with no car.
Okay. Why don't you have her do this? Why don't you have her sign this title back over to him?
Signature of the seller, I guess.
Okay. Can I borrow your pen? Thank you.
Good. Now he's got his car back. Go pick it up.
Okay.
It's yours. And now you'll pay her $5,000 so she can go out and buy a car. Just for the plaintiff for the amount of $5,000.
Thank you, Judge.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I thought it was, I guess, fair.
Of course I'm happy. I won. You know, yay.
I was just upset that she wasn't with the party.
He just kept saying, this is my party, you're my guest, and you should be by my side the entire night.
That's pretty much all it was about.
Really have no, beef with him other than this.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Marquez versus Welfare, step forward, please.
23-year-old Joe Marquez is suing his ex-girlfriend, 22-year-old student Jamie Welfare, for selling his washer and dryer. Jamie claims the appliances were a Mother's Day gift from Joe.
How old are you, Mr. Marquez?
I'm 23. I'll be 24 in a couple days.
Before you moved in with Miss Welfare and her two children, where were you living?
I was living with my parents.
And when did you move in with Miss Welfare?
I moved in with her in mid-October of 2003.
And how long did you live there?
I lived there until the beginning of April.
And where were you working during that time?
The whole time I was working at Denny's restaurant.
Part-time?
Part-time, yes. I also coached football at the local elementary school.
What was your financial arrangement when you were living with Miss Welfare?
We paid half. I paid $300, she paid $300.
For rent?
For rent, correct.
Is that right?
That's correct.
What about the rest of the expenses?
We usually split those down the middle as well.
And what were you doing, Miss Welfare?
I also had two jobs. I was working at two separate restaurants.
Okay. This is what the complaint is about. The complaint says that while you were living there, you purchased a washer and dryer. When you moved out in April of 2004, you told Miss Welfare that she could keep them for a while because you had no place to take them because you were moving back with your parents. A year later, you finally get your own place. You let her know you want your washer and dryer back, and she says, forget it.
Actually, I did have a place to put them. I have a receipt for my storage space, which I purchased in April 17th of 2004 as well, which was actually 5 days after I moved everything out of the apartment.
All right, so you didn't want to put it in your storage space because...
Well, she has two children, and we've been to the laundromat together, and it takes quite a long time to do laundry. And since my parents already had a washer and dryer, I had no need for them at that time. And I had just purchased them in March of that year, which had only been about a month. So I figured I might as well get some use out of them by leaving them at her apartment.
That's somewhat correct, but not completely correct.
23-year-old Joe Marquez is suing his ex-girlfriend, 22-year-old student Jamie Welfare, for selling his washer and dryer. Jamie claims the appliances were a Mother's Day gift from Joe.
Well, let me hear what your version of the events were.
When he bought those for me, it was an early Mother's Day gift. I was the one doing all the laundry. He never even did his own laundry. I was doing my laundry, his laundry, and both of my children's laundry. And between the two jobs and being at the laundromat all the time, it was a lot of time away. And so we had been discussing, you know, him buying a washer and dryer for me, and he was looking online and said, hey, come and pick the one you want. And so I picked the one I want. He gave them to me. When he moved out, I was sleeping when he moved out. You know, our relationship had gotten kind of rocky. There was never any discussion about me giving them back, ever.
When, for the first time, did you contact her with regard to retrieving these two items?
Your Honor, as she said, I moved out at the very beginning of April of 2004. We didn't talk for 2 weeks afterwards. After that, we, began phone conversations, and actually on May 5th of 2004, she came over to my house, my parents' house, for a little Cinco de Mayo get-together. In May of 2004, I gave Miss Welfare $100 because she was having a rough time making it on her own in the apartment, and I have here a check for utilities/other stuff I gave to Miss Welfare for $100 to help her out.
Can you answer my question?
Sure.
You remember what my question was?
Yes, I do. Have we ever talked about it? About the washer and dryer?
When, for the first time, did you ask for it back?
I first asked for it back when I found out I was moving out with my current girlfriend, which was in March of 2005.
Okay, so between April of 2004 and March 2005, you had absolutely no discussion with her about this washer and dryer.
That is incorrect. When I gave her that check, which was dated May 20th of 2004, we had discussed it. She actually wanted to purchase the washer and dryer fully. She wanted to give me payments per month. And I told her that since we were becoming good friends, I did not want the only conversation to be between us about the washer and dryer.
At that time, Mr. Marquez, did you believe that the friendship would rekindle into a relationship?
No. Actually, when we first broke up,
Mr. Marquez, don't insult my intelligence.
Sorry, Your Honor.
You don't go from being lovers to friends without somebody hoping for a little bit more.
That is correct. Yes.
So during that time, and during the time, according to you, she said, why don't you let me make payments on it? You said, no.
Correct.
And now you have a new girlfriend.
Yes, I do.
You moving into an apartment together?
We have currently moved into an apartment as of the 9th of April.
And I assume it doesn't have a washer and dryer.
Actually, it does. After this little skirmish between me and my ex-girlfriend, my current girlfriend went out and purchased one, hoping it would make me feel a little bit better.
Did it?
I was very, very pleased that she would show that much friendship towards me. But I wasn't very angry about the washer and dryer. I was angry at the fact that she took me for granted that I was being nice and letting her borrow the washer and dryer when I could have just put them in my storage.
Get over it. There is something that doesn't ring true, sir, about your story that you told her more than a year ago, that I'm letting you use this piece of equipment that breaks down, that once it's used, it becomes less functional. I'm going to let you use that for as long as it takes. And it just so happens that the time that you want it back is when you're moving in with a new girlfriend. By the way, whose washer and dryer is the new one that was purchased?
It is hers.
I just want her to hear that.
Yes, I've told her that many times.
Very good. And you know whose this is?
Yes.
Hers. Thank you. That's it. Have a happy life.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Versus McAtee. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Have a seat, please.
Bird, we have another case of Dumb and Dumber. Dumb and Dumber. The junior ones. What's your name?
Manaz.
And how old are you?
16.
And you?
Carrie.
How old are you?
15.
Did you have permission to take your car out that evening?
No, ma'am.
So you mean you took your mother's car?
My sister's.
How old is your sister?
She is 17.
So you took your sister's car without permission?
Yes, ma'am.
But it wasn't your sister's car because your sister's 17. She can't own a car.
Oh.
So the car belonged to your mother.
Yeah.
So you took your mother's car without permission?
Yes.
And you went to a?
I went to pick up Carrie and her friend and then to go to a party.
So you went to a party?
Yes.
Did you have a driver's license?
No, ma'am.
And you went to the party?
Yes.
And you were with her?
I was at her house before we left for the party, and we both went and picked up another friend.
And while you were at the party, you were drinking?
Yes.
What were you drinking?
Alcohol.
Got where we're going?
Oh, I'm already there.
And you had too much to drink, so it was time to leave?
No, the cops came.
Cops came. Police came. Now, this party, was it someone's home?
Yes.
A boy or a girl?
A boy.
Let me guess, his parents weren't home?
Yeah, yes, they were.
They were home. Why did the police show up at the party?
Because everyone was smoking and drinking and...
Smoking what?
Weed.
Smoking marijuana?
Yes.
Where were the parents when this was going on?
The mom was home buying the alcohol for kids, and I don't know where was the dad, but I know the mom was home.
Now, was Kerry smoking marijuana?
Yes.
Were you?
Yes.
Honest. So the police were called, the police were coming, and then it was time for you to leave. You didn't want to drive home because you had too much to drink?
Yes.
So Kerry drove home?
Yes.
But on the way home, she hit a car.
Yes.
And that's what this case is about, because you feel as if it's appropriate for Kerry and or her mother to pay for half of the damage to both your car and the car that was hit.
Exactly.
And Kerry's mother says...
No.
Why?
Because I was misled at the time. I had had several conversations with Mary before these two went to this party. They'd only been friends
Who's
for a
Mary?
few weeks.
Which one's Mary?
is a mother.
Okay.
Okay. Because we were both concerned about what our daughters were getting into in their recent behavior. I was fully led to believe that Naz was a licensed driver. Several times she drove my child home from school. They both went to a party in another town.
Who led you?
Mary herself told me what a good driver Naz was.
Let's talk about the 29th of December.
Well, I'm believing that Naz is a licensed driver, so I agreed to pay for half of the deductible.
Just a second. Let's look at the objective data. This young lady has told me that without permission, she took her sister's car, who's 17, so it's really her mother's car, without permission.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your daughter knows that she doesn't have a license, correct?
Correct.
Your daughter knows that it's against the law to smoke marijuana. Is that correct?
Correct.
Your daughter knows that she should not have gotten behind the wheel of a car to drive.
Correct. Correct.
And your daughter was the one who was driving while under the influence of a controlled substance when she hit a car.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Correct.
And if what you're telling me is you do not believe that she bears at least partial responsibility, I would like you to explain why.
I do believe she is responsible for what is not covered and paid for by the insurance policy on the vehicle by the owner.
Okay. Now let me explain something to you, madam. She is not obligated, first of all, to put this claim through her insurance. Even if she did, it is more than likely that they would disclaim on the policy because the person who drove the car was not a licensed driver.
Well, Your Honor, I don't mean to interrupt you. She needs to take better control of her own daughters. And had I not been misled by her in the beginning about Naz having her own driver's license, not carrying her sister's in her wallet, this relationship would have ended long before that. My daughter would not have been in that party or that car.
Listen, get your head out from where it shouldn't be. Your daughter would have been there. If you think that your daughter wouldn't have been at a party smoking your daughter wasn't smoking marijuana because she let them use the car. Your daughter's 15 years old. I would be more concerned with my 15-year-old daughter going to a party where the police had to be called to break up the party where there was marijuana being smoked and alcohol being served than I would over the responsibility to pay for half the damage that she did to the car. So we have dumb, dumber, and dumber. Okay.
Can you do me a favor?
What?
Can I have a copy of this?
Yeah. You want to show it to someone?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Good. Let me see the estimates on the damage to the car, please.
This is the estimate of the other parties, sir.
Okay.
This is the check that I paid, and this is the estimate of my car.
Okay. May I have it, please?
Pictures.
What?
Yeah, some pictures.
I don't need pictures. I got the picture. What do you want to do with the tape of this? Tell me what you want to do with it.
Your Honor, I have teenage children.
Yeah. Got it. I got it.
And teenage nieces and nephews. I
got
want
it.
them to see this one.
I got it. Stupid people.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I'm telling you that you better keep better control of your daughter because your daughter is out of control. Do you understand?
And later today,
What were you doing with her husband in the afternoon?
He called me and said Melanie was out of town and he could come by and pick up the flyers.
Stupid!
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 16-year-old Manaz Soleimani says her former friend, 15-year-old Carrie McAtee, wrecked her car. Manaz says Carrie had been smoking pot.
Okay.
Your Honor, may I say something?
No, you said enough. You don't want to appear any more stupid than you already appear. Now, let's get to you. You got to keep better control of your daughter.
That's right.
You understand that?
Yes.
Your 16-year-old daughter and your 17-year-old daughter shouldn't have a car.
She has her driver license, my older one.
And this one?
No, this one has...
This one?
Yes. I already told Naz not to hang out with Kathy.
Just a second.
Not to hang
I'm
out.
talking about allowing her to use
Yes,
a car.
Yes, you're right.
You've done that.
No, I didn't let her to drive the car.
Are you telling me that you've never allowed her to drive the car before?
Alone, no. Never alone. Just
With whom?
With me. Because she has her permit.
She has a learner's permit?
Yes. So she never, that's why they drive. Miriam gives both of them a ride to school.
Listen to me very carefully. Something's not happening right with this car. So I wouldn't let either one of them use it. You understand what I'm saying to you? It's up to you. She's half responsible for the damage she did to the car. She was under the influence of drugs. She shouldn't have gotten behind the wheel. She shouldn't have been using the drugs to begin with. She knew she had no license. She's responsible for half the damage that she caused. But I'm telling you
That's right.
that you better keep better control of your daughter. Because your daughter is out of control. Because not only was she smoking marijuana that night, she was also using alcohol, and she was in no condition to drive, which is what put her behind the wheel in the first place. Do you understand?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,425.50. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
You go first. You go first. I go first. I do believe that we were partially responsible. Both of the girls did something stupid, and both of them are responsible for this.
She's lucky that my daughter was not injured.
She never drove by herself. I always drive her to school, and everyone knows.
She had been drinking like straight Bacardi and had been smoking.
I got grounded. My mom took away all my stuff.
I hadn't been smoking as much as either of the girls.
Parents should be more careful because drinking is very easy. They can drink all the time, and they can buy weeds all the time as well.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Carter versus Powell. Step forward, please.
Travel agent Trenace Carter is suing ministers Melody and Brendan Powell for loss of business and slander. The Powells are countersuing for slander and pain and suffering.
Miss Carter, I gather you are suing for some sort of breach of contract, and the contract would be an oral contract that you had with the defendants to plan a trip as a travel agent for a large group of people that was supposed to go on a cruise. Is that generally correct?
No. I put together a cruise and I contacted Melody because I needed speakers. That was the first contact I had with them. So it was my cruise to start off with, and they ran with it.
So what's your problem?
They have slandered my name and said that I'm not a travel agent. They have defamed my character, and I have been receiving emails of threatening of communication and just all kinds of disruption.
Well, what happened? Did you plan the trip for them, or did you not plan the trip for them?
I planned the trip for a group of people for myself, and I contacted her because I didn't have any idea how to contact the speaker.
So you planned a trip for a group of people yourself as a travel agent?
Yes.
But you didn't have the people?
I had a mailing list of people I needed speakers.
You didn't have anybody signed up for the cruise
No,
yet?
not yet. Not till I started advertising.
So you were planning a cruise in your mind. You didn't have any people yet. You had a mailing list of potential customers.
Right.
You contacted them because you wanted them to provide speakers. You're ministers? You have a ministry? Okay. What was the contract that you had with them?
There was no contract with them.
So what are you suing them for?
I'm suing them because there's some personal matters came into play, and that's when the drama started.
Okay. So you're suing them for saying that you were not a travel agent?
Yes.
And what else?
Defamation of character.
What were they saying about
They
it?
were saying that I was not a travel agent, I was a liar, I was just everything that they could come up with, they were saying. Here's an email from that she sent to a cruise line.
This is the cruise line that you contacted because you wanted to put together a cruise with the cruise line. So you didn't want any of their church parishioners to go on your cruise?
I want that.
Just answer my question. You did not want their church parishioners to go on your cruise. They were not on your mailing list.
Correct.
Okay. You see the cruise line. Well, this email says that they want a $50 refund that one of their parishioners gave to you in order to secure a spot on this cruise. And they're saying that this parishioner called and asked for their $50 deposit back, and you told their parishioner it had already been sent to Carnival Cruise Line. And then they said that they checked with Carnival Cruise, and they don't take a $50 deposit, they take a $150 deposit, and it is their belief that you are embezzling their clients of funds in order to benefit yourself. And we ask that Carnival investigate the situation and this person who may be pretending to be an agent of Carnival Cruise Line.
I have a contract from Carnival that has my deposits as an agent. This states that I am a contract agent. There are my contact numbers and my IATA numbers. Those are the only way that we can book groups.
Are you a licensed travel agent?
Yes.
What about this woman's $50 deposit? Where did it go?
It went back to her. Here is her file.
When did you send it back to her?
I took it back to her personally.
Well, this letter was sent on April 12th, and you brought it back on April 16th?
I took it back to her on April
16th, 4 days after this email was sent. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is this the slander that you're talking about?
Yes, and
well, I would like you to tell me what happened in this arrangement that you were having with them, because clearly some of the people that were supposed to go on this cruise that you were trying to put together were their parishioners.
What happened was, the first part of April, I emailed Melanie that I had flyers ready.
What kind of flyers?
I'd worked on advertisement flyers and postcards and things of that matter. Called Carnival, ordered postcards, ordered letterhead, and I printed all the information on those cards and letterhead. I emailed her to let her know she could come by and pick them up.
Just a second. What was she supposed to do with the flyers?
She was supposed to be giving them out.
To whom?
To who she was inviting to the cruise.
So that I was correct when I say that you were trying to put together a cruise and some of their parishioners were supposed to be vacationers on that cruise.
Yes, so there were several.
All right. That's what I...
There were several churches.
I don't care if there were several churches. I asked you about hers. You said no. It was my understanding that you were trying to put together a trip, and at least some of their parishioners were supposed to go on this trip. You prepared flyers for them to distribute to their parishioners, along with maybe other people as well, and then something happened. Right?
Correct.
Okay. What happened? You called her and let her know that there were flyers. You emailed her that the flyers were ready. She wasn't there. I'm going to cut to the chase now because my head's spinning. She wasn't there. Her husband decided to come over instead. And one thing led to another, and you spent part of an afternoon together. Went one place, went another place. Anyway, she comes back into town, and according to her, she got very annoyed because her husband was not supposed to be at your house, was not supposed to be out to lunch with you, was not supposed to be doing anything else with you, and she canceled your participation in the cruise. So far, is that reasonable?
Yes.
Okay. And then, this is what you're complaining about.
Yes, and there have been several people that have been calling me.
You can't tell me what those people said to you, madam? That's hearsay. You have anything else? Any other emails that you want to show me?
Yes, the ones that she has been harassing me with.
I'd like to see them, please. What were you doing with her husband in the afternoon?
He called me and said Melanie was out of town and he could come by and pick up the flyers. I said, well, I'm at home. You can come by and pick them up. I said I was supposed to be gone, but things didn't work out for me to go. He said, well, I can drop you by the DMV. That was no problem.
What DMV? I didn't hear anything about a DMV.
Right.
I said, home, not home. What?
When he came, he said, well, that was where I was supposed to go, so he was checking to see if I was home to come by and pick up the flyers.
So he came over and he got the flyers.
Right. He offered to drop me at the DMV.
So he
while he
wanted
was
to
on the
take you
phone.
someplace where you wanted to go.
Right. That was when he gave me the check for the deposit, the $50. And he took the flight.
So you went to the DMV. He took you to the DMV.
was closed. They had went to lunch.
Oh.
So we went over to McDonald's and picked up food, and we sat at their house 20 minutes waiting
Okay,
for
so
the
you
DMV
just
open.
a second. So the DMV was closed.
Right.
You went and got some lunch, and then you went back to their house.
Correct.
And had your lunch in their
Right.
house. Waited until the Department of Motor Vehicles opened again.
Right.
Then he took you back to Department of Motor Vehicles.
Right.
And then where did you go?
Went home.
Then you went home.
Right.
Stupid! It's not harassment. She's tired of you. She's tired of the explanations. Listen.
Well, I had stopped communicating with her completely.
Good. Stop communicating. Block her emails. Can't you do that? Put a block?
Yeah, you can
Say I don't
block
want to hear
it.
from her anymore?
You can block.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what you have to do. Don't want to hear from you anymore. Listen, you had a business arrangement that didn't go anywhere.
Right.
There was no contract. You did a foolish thing. You did a foolish thing.
Mm-hmm.
You got angry. You retaliated. You don't have to see each other anymore, right? You don't like each other. You're not going to do business with each other anymore. Correct?
That's right.
Good. Goodbye.
Trên tay mình đang cầm đây là cái sản phẩm kem chống nắng mà rất là nhiều người mê, và đó là kem chống nắng Sufficiency, cực kỳ là hot, và với cái giá thành mà để chúng ta sở hữu một cái dòng kem chống nắng như thế này thì nó rất là phù hợp. Và đối với dòng kem chống nắng Sufficiency Classic thì có cái dung tích là 100ml, và SPF thì lên tới là 50+, PA3+, là một cái sản phẩm chống nắng vật lý, và đặc biệt là dành cho các cái làn da nhạy cảm và rất là ít gây cái kích ứng và bảo vệ cái làn da khi mà bị tổn thương bởi cái môi trường bên ngoài, với cái tỷ lệ vàng của các cái bộ lọc UV vô cơ và hữu cơ. Và đối với dòng kem chống nắng CNC này sẽ giúp ngăn ngừa lão hóa da do cái tia UV, và cái khả năng chống tia cực tím rất là tốt, và nó sẽ không gây cái kích ứng da, ngừa các cái ngăn ngừa các cái dấu hiệu như là lão hóa sớm, và nó bao gồm các cái sự xỉn màu và da khô. Và đối với dòng kem chống nắng này, nó còn tăng cường cái độ đàn hồi cho da và sẽ giúp cho cái làn da của chúng ta được khỏe mạnh hơn. Và cái thành phần có trong collagen thủy phân là một trong những cái loại collagen tự nhiên, và nó có cái khả năng là củng cố và là cái hàng rào và cái độ đàn hồi của da. Ngoài ra thì nó còn có cái acti là một cái thành phần tương tự như là Botox, nó sẽ cung cấp cái độ đàn hồi cho da và giúp da tránh cái tình trạng là bị chảy xệ. Và đối với dòng kem chống nắng Food CNC này, nó còn có cái khả năng là nâng cái tông cho da của chúng ta rất là tốt, và nó không gây đổ dầu. Chính vì vậy mà chúng ta có thể sử dụng cái dòng kem chống nắng này để thay cho cái kem lót khi mà chúng ta muốn trang điểm.